So now again, I'm rethinking my rethink. I'm actively trying to work through this moral question, right? Of the tenant, sorry, landlord making the offer to the tenant. So I'm like, well, as long as there's no pressure, but like in the end, right? Like
there's always pressure.
When we're talking about like shelter, between like whether I have shelter or I don't have shelter, that in itself is coercive, right? Like even like so, like I'm thinking about this, like, is it worse for a person to be told you have to leave, you have to like abandon your place of shelter because they can't pay, right? They don't have the ability to pay. Is it better simply to have abandoned the place of shelter or to have given them the option, right? But the option itself seems like, and I think many women would feel this way specifically, right? Because they would have to be dealing with this more than men, obviously, right? But I think many women would actually feel that even being put that option out there would be like a mental or psychological like detriment, like an attack. Like it feels.
Have you ever been evicted?
Like a weight on them, right? Like in
have you ever been evicted or close to?
No,
okay, so like being close. Okay, I've been close to eviction when I was younger. Jesus. Okay. First of all, if you have nowhere to go, right? Like that's one thing, and then finding a new place if you couldn't afford your old place is impossible, because now where the fuck are you going to get first, last? Where are you going to get the upfront money to move in anywhere after you just got kicked out of your old place? So like that's one psychological fuck. Versus if the landlord gave me the opportunity, if she was like, "Yo, listen, Sonny, you want to stay here? I'll give you an opportunity. You just got to nut up and pony down. Listen, I'll take that psych damage over potentially fucking living in my car."
Let's go to Alexander Wynn, $20. We'll go to Ico too. $20 YouTube super chat. Thank you so much for the kind super chat. FYI, passing the sexual obligation to others is called pimping. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa, no, it's not.
Well, yeah.
No,
well, hold on. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going with that. It's like
money off of women. Right.
Well, hold on. You're making money.
If I'm a wingman and I get someone late, that's not pimping.
No, hold on. If you got like a contract that says we get three blowjobs or 3 fucks a month, right? Whatever, and then they go, okay, well, I can divvy them up as I see fit, and their homie goes, oh, I need to get laid, and he goes, I'm gonna pay you $300, and hey, this person's got your blowjob fucking bank over here, and you can just offer it to them. You're making money on the side. Like, why is that? Like, that is pimping. Like. Now you're just offering it out. Like, why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't you do that?
Because I'm trying to simplify the service.
Well, what if it's a married guy offering this as a thing? And he's like, well, I get to pick who gets to get BJ's.
There's another factor to this too, though, and that is like we're thinking of this as an individual choice that an individual person makes. But really, if you back up and you look at the structure of it, if a certain amount of rent is being paid in this way, then that's going to affect the balance of supply and demand, right? So the people who are not giving up sex for their rent, on balance, are going to be paying more for rent in order to make up for all those people who aren't paying in the form of cash, right? Because you still have to be able to, like, whoever the landlord is or whatever is still going to have to pay their expenses at the end of the month, and they're not going to be paying their suppliers in sex more than likely.
Well, then
so they're going to have to
responsibility. They got to pony up. They're the one who accepted.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Therefore, it's not the responsibility of the individual, right? That individual performing those acts now affects everybody else who's not doing that. It now becomes more expensive to pay rent in the old-fashioned way. I don't know which way is the old-fashioned way, actually.
But the only thing he can jack up is himself in that situation. You cannot jack up the rent.
Well, how do you know that? What, you're going to have a regulation that says you have to?
Yeah, in my world, we have a regulation where I look at the rent before. I look at the rent before you were doing sex trades for rent in certain in certain units, right? Let's just say this is an.
Who's the I in this case? The government?
Me, I'm the I. So like if I were king, yeah, there would
the government. Yeah,
I would. Yeah, 100%. Everyone would be reporting to me, right? We would have a report on this because we're allowing sex trade for rent, right? If we're going to allow service, or if we're going to allow service trade for rent,
we'll call it in-kind
I do not
rent.
believe in extorting the other renters, right? They got to pay their fair. It's a fair share. That you're the one making that.
But what if you had to like increase rent specifically to cover the one unit that's not paying?
No more service for rent.
First of all, how's my mic quality? How is that coming on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This makes
And your
just.
keyboard.
I know, right? There's no push to talk here. I don't know. I'm not
This
used
is
to
why
it.
communism doesn't work, by the way. But go on.
So, just to be
Like,
clear,
this is why.
the logic that you guys are presenting would equally serve to like criminalize landlords buying anything for themselves that's not like more rental units. Because whenever they spend money on themselves, like whenever they're buying like, you know, a cruise or a vacation, other kind of vacation, or, you know, a new motorcycle or anything along those lines, that's money that they're not spending, you know, investing in more real estate to bring in, like to increase the housing supply, which is costing everybody. So I mean, I guess technically in some way, yes, whenever you have a landlord not maximizing the overall amount of money that they're making and not maximally spending that money on new housing units, it is affecting the market in the same way that anybody not doing something, like people sitting around and you know, not working, affects the market too, right? You know, they're not contributing services, which is backing the US dollar. In fact, we should just, like in the same way we can use the government to criminalize certain kinds of payment, we should probably use the government then to criminalize unemployment.
Well, I think you're going to see something else. Is now you're going to see a whole new style of whorehouse. You're just going to have like a big old conglomerate come in and buy like 50 apartments, and you can put 50 women in there, and then you know, for one day a week.
A brothel?
Yeah, one day a week they're gonna have to give a BJ, and guess what? They have to give it to whoever or whatever. And as long as you pass a cleanliness test, you know, whatever. But there is one pro for this: is that now, every man will have a standard. They'll be able to look and say, this is the exact financial amount that the average woman is going for sex. And so anytime some woman is bitching at you about not spending enough money, be like, well, I can get 4 fucking blowjobs for the cost of what you're giving out. And this is going to win every
For
argument.
the cost of a
about
month's rent,
finances
that's
forever.
$500 a
Yeah,
blowjob.
yeah, hey, that's $250, $1,000 a blowjob. You know, hey. I could be getting that. And what are you bringing me to the
Well, we'd
table?
have to figure out.
You guys would
price-
agree. You guys would
average
agree
price
that if
for
I
the
spend
blowjob
50,
is.
well, if I spend $50 on a blowjob, you would agree that I'm not spending $50 on a share of Coca-Cola, which is depriving the market. It affects everybody, doesn't it?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Is that the
Yeah.
point you want to
This is
make?
also the case with cigarettes and alcohol and pretty much anything. I don't know. I think it's a dumb argument that like, this might affect the market. I also think it's a bad argument when we're talking about like, if you're pro-sex work, there's no reason why you also shouldn't be able just to cut out the middleman and have a landlord be able to directly, you know, have sex with their tenants, right? Because
Yeah, but if my rent
you're
goes up
pro-sex work,
because you're fucking for rent, the fuck that.
well, but again, Ali, like,
What do you mean? But again, Ali, no, if my rent goes up just because you're getting blowjobs on the side. Absolutely
let's
not.
think about this like logically, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say the woman is a sex worker, and if you are in favor of criminalizing sex work, then maybe this argument won't resonate with you. But I know some people are in favor of legalizing it. So let's say you're in favor of legalizing sex work, and a tenant has as their customer the landlord, and the landlord comes and pays $100. The prostitute then takes the $100 and then immediately hands it over to the landlord for rent. Why is that any substantively different than just having sex for the rent? It's the
Yeah,
same
so
thing.
like once again, if the only difference is at one point she's not giving $100 back, she's gonna have to collect that for 15 services, right? Hopefully, the average rent's about $1,500, so she's gonna do that for 15 services, and at the beginning of each month, she's gonna give him $1,500 back, right? Versus if he's just not collecting any money from this apartment, if he's not separating the business from the pleasure, he sees this as a net loss, right? $1,500 a month net loss on this apartment, and then he's gonna have to subjugate the other people, which maybe let's call it
mortgages still need to get
let's
paid
call it a
back.
4-person apartment, right? Now I'm paying $500 extra a month.
Think
This
about
guy's
this.
getting his
He's
rocks
just gonna-
off.
hold on.
He's just going to double dip. He's getting his blowjobs and he's going to
Yeah, you're not thinking about this again. Like if the rent is $1,500 and he's only getting one sex out of it, right? In a society in which you
One sex, please.
one sex, right? In a society in which sex work is
A
legal.
unit of sex.
One sex,
In a
please.
society in which sex work is legal, like this is just like perhaps this is a very high quality prostitute. This would be like going out and paying $1,500 for just like one sex act. If they're good enough,
See, I don't think he'd see it that way. I think unfortunately the landlord would want at least 10 to 15 sexes
Sure.
if he could.
how's that
And
different? How is
so-
that different than her charging him $100 15 times?
once again, as long as he sees it that way, that's fine. As long as I'm not paying an extra $500 for his sexes, I'm good.
Okay, are you dictating what your landlord can spend their money on at this point? Like, what if he wants to spend $1,500?
Oh, I'm yeah.
What if he wants?
I'm
What
getting
if
to the point where fuck the landlord is
Sure,
really
okay.
resonating heavy here.
What if instead of spending $1,500, or I guess in this case,
Yeah.
foregoing the $1,500, which is the exact same thing, right, mathematically, if he spends the $1,500 instead of on the sex, he spends it on booze. Should he be allowed to
And then
do
he's
this?
jacking my rent up because he's an alcoholic.
Yeah, he's jacking your rent up.
Well, then you got to understand why people are in the streets saying "eat your landlord."
Okay, what if he spends it on, fancy cruises? What if he spends it on fancy
Regardless
baby
of what
food?
he's spending on. If my rent goes up because of his lifestyle, and it's not because in accordance to the area, my rent, like it's not because in accordance he doesn't have more bills or whatever it may be. If it's just like, oh, his lifestyle's going up and now you expect the renters to pay more, they're gonna go in the streets and ask for your blood. I don't know.
Alexander Wynn has the same thing. So $10 super chat, and we'll go right to you, Lactoid. What's to stop the landlord from getting rent from others? Maybe some guy called John or Ali every month in exchange for her services. So that's the issue. Is that like there's still thank you for the $10 super chat, Alexander Wynn. There's still a mortgage that has to be paid usually for a lot of these properties. There's still a mortgage. Like there is a base price or cost, right? That is immovable, right? The bank doesn't care about any of this stuff, right? So that has to be paid. And then if that is coming out of the rest of us, or like all the rest of us who we're all tenants in this building, if we have to pay more because of this other person, that's where we're seeing a problem here.
I again feel like you guys aren't getting the math right. Like, if the landlord is making $1,500. Let's say the mortgage is $1,000 and the rent's $1,500. Okay, these terrible margins, by the way. You can make way more money just putting in the stock market. But let's just say these are the margins.
I hear you.
So $500 on top of the mortgage that he's making. You're saying, well, if he doesn't charge $1,500, he's still going to pay the $1,000, and so he's going to have to get that $1,000 from somewhere else. But this logic applies to anything the landlord spends money on. If the landlord buys a new car, right? And so the only question is, why is this sex act being treated differently than any other kind of reckless spending?
Because a business fund and your personal fund are supposed to be separate, right? Like you're supposed to get paid as a landlord, however they pay themselves. It's not your rent that you collect at the end of each month isn't your income. Right, because you do have bills to pay as a business owner, the business that you're operating.
Well, this is every business,
I know. Yeah. So if the landlord is like, for example, for like 3 months just spending out of his fucking mind, and now he has all his bills backed up, and then the rent goes up, like that landlord should lose his business because he doesn't know how to operate a business. Yeah, I know. So so there is a problem with the landlord having an exuberant lifestyle and charging higher rent for the people, because that's not how that works.
What do you mean by problem? Like the problem, like it's actually a good thing that he is punished for reckless behavior. Like we want a society.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
In which
like it'll come with issues.
Bankrupt, right?
Yeah, it'll come with issues.
Okay. I guess like the problem. I hear what you're saying, Lactoid, right? I understand. Oh my! Like every time I watch you take a swig from that massive jug. Holy shit! Oh my god!
Water intake has been so high lately.
All right, so
like none of you drink water on this stream. It's terrifies me.
Drink water all the time.
I never see you guys drink out of those. Yeah, there we go.
Tea and water every day. That's all I drink.
In fact, I actually wanted to, because I was drinking
alcohol, but
I drank most of this before stream. I was gonna like hop away for a second just to refill this thing. But in any case, doesn't matter. So look, I get exactly what you're saying, right? Like a cost is a cost is a cost. And so if you are spending recklessly, and this landlord has a limited amount of income, let's say like the rent is his only income, right? Well, then it doesn't matter like where that cost comes from if it then rebounds into like a rent change. Now, obviously, this like even this thought experiment doesn't actually work, because like rent doesn't change like immediately, right? Like it doesn't change.
You can
like,
hike it per year, but generally.
Yeah, you hike it per year, exactly, right? You usually just can't change it because you just made a landlord made a bad decision. It doesn't immediately rebound to it, but still, like it feels differently to people to say that like, okay, there's a portion of this apartment, right? Apartment building who doesn't have to pay, right? Who is here, and then like the rest falls on the other tenants. Now, I can see that. Like, you can imagine this coming to light, right? And then there being like a huge scandal, a political scandal about this. Like, hey, like, look how like these other renters are forced to like keep up this guy's sex habits, right? Like, you can see how this is a problem, even though, like you said, it could have been for anything. He could have just been buying boats, right? And still, in the end, the rent goes up the same amount. So,
if what you're saying is, for obvious reasons, for involving like tradition and religion, usually, are people going to treat certain vices differently than other vices on the kind of political arena? Sure. I think that like if a landlord is blowing their money on hookers, booze, stuff like that, they're probably going to be treated worse than if they're blowing their money on like cruises and fancy cars, right? This is probably the case. But that, to me, it doesn't. I don't know. I guess the point I'm trying to get at is I don't see this as any kind of valid reason to criminalize trading sex for rent, if that's the conversation.
So, all right, two things past us that I wanted to talk to you about. So, landlords, the problem of landlords like making the offer. So, I'm not sure how much of the conversation you heard when you by the time you came in. You were in your African American phase, and you couldn't make it here on time.
Just took off my dashiki.
But no. So what I was saying previously, and again, you might have missed this, is that I think that if a tenant makes the offer, right, to a landlord, that generally is okay. Like, hey, like I'd like to make this kind of exchange. Do you find that exchange acceptable? And landlord has the option of refusing or accepting it. The only exception would be like if they just keep doing it when they've been told, hey, I don't want to receive that kind of attention, and like that would be sexual harassment. But beyond that, I think it's morally fine for that to happen. Okay. But moving on to the other end of this, like the other way, when the landlord is making the offer to a tenant, the problem is there is an essential course of nature to it. That like you have an essential need, being shelter, right? Being equated with sex. Like, to keep this shelter, you need to have sex with me. Now,
but if she's a prostitute, then isn't she doing that for shelter anyway?
Okay, first of all, like, I want to push back. One, I was never thinking about prostitutes at all when I was considering this. I think people, ordinary people, do sex work all the time. They simply exchange good for service, but it's not their career, right? It's just a thing that happens, a transaction, an underground part of the economy.
And in that moment, they're prostitutes. That's what I'm referring to, right? Like if
I know that's but that's
draw the distinction.
That implies.
What's the difference between somebody going out and prostituting themselves for the money that they need to pay rent?
Sure.
How's that not?
Hold on, one second. But boy, I want to make a distinction here, right? Prostitution is a job. That's a thing, right? Like an employment opportunity there, right? But like you can do an act, but not be defined by that act, right? Like, so I can. I was having trouble with my toilet recently, right? If I use a plunger, right, that's a plumbing act. But am I a plumber? No, I'm not a plumber.
Am I a delivery driver?
I don't think so. Yeah,
when I'm doing DoorDash, am I a delivery driver?
You'll pay that bitch.
If that's your method of employment, then yeah,
I do it like once a month.
If that's your method of employment, it is. But if you are in the act, if you're just doing, sorry, I don't know why you're fighting me on this. Like, just doing an act, right, of carpentry, like putting up a shelf, right, doesn't make you a fucking carpenter, right? It's different. Now, there's a bit of a gray line in there. Sure, we can argue about that, but you understand the concept I'm putting out there. So, like, that's why I'm not trying to talk about just simply prostitutes. I'm trying to expand the conversation to all kinds of people, because all kinds of people engage in sex work all the time, unfortunately.
Well,
fortunately, whatever.
They do it all the time. I don't know. I think I understand what you're saying. I just think I disagree.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it there. In any case, right? So, when it's tied to like a power imbalance because the landlord has more power than the tenant, then it can become coercive. Now, I think that like what I was trying to play with in my mind is with okay, like if this tenant literally cannot afford to pay, right? They literally can't do it, and they're going to be thrown out any which way. Would it be morally better or morally neutral to like make the offer then, right? And at first I want to say yes, it's better because now I'm getting you an option to keep your shelter, right? But on the other end, I think for people who would actually experience this, and it's probably going to be women, right? People who would actually be in that position, I think for so many of them, that feels like a psychological burden on them. That feels like an assault in itself. To be told, hey, you gotta, like, yeah, I will throw you out in the streets, or you could, perform a sex act on me, right? Like that in itself adds to the trauma of being evicted. Even if they say no, right? This is something they're gonna hang on to. So I think practically, as a matter of how society works, not simply like the economics of it, it's problematic having the landlords make the offer. So go ahead.
I don't know what to say. I agree with your initial kind of intuition where it's like, if I was about to be evicted, I'd rather at least have the option presented in front of me. Some landlords like, hey, suck my dick, lactoid, otherwise, you're late on rent, I have the right to evict you. I'm going to evict you. Suck my dick or I'm evicting you. So I now, and prior, when I had no options, I could either, I could just be evicted, or at least now I have an option that I can refuse. And the consequence of that would just be exactly what was going to happen to me anyway.
Can you understand how? Now, I agree with you, right? If it was me, I'd feel the same way.
Yeah.
But can you understand how someone else would feel differently? That
I don't have empathy. I don't really fully understand it.
That's actually true.
He's a conservative. So
I conceptually
I still don't think it's equal, though. I don't think it's true that you would only not have an option. There's also the way that it affects the market, right? So if your rent is more expensive because a couple of other people have used this option, then it's not the same scenario in both worlds, right? In one world, you have the option.
Like, fuck it. It is what it is. Right? Lactoid, you'd be cool with it?
You'd be like, well...
What was the question?
So I'm just saying, if in one world your rent is $2,000, and in another world, because some of your neighbors are taking this other option, your rent is $2,200, right? You're paying $200 more every month in the world in which you have the option, to pay in kind. So, like, I don't think it's exactly the same in both worlds. I think you do have to look at what the market forces. I know what you're saying is that then you have to look at a whole plethora of other things.
At literally everything, yeah.
Also make rent going up or down. But I'm just saying that if we're just isolating it to this one case, that's the case, right?
Right, but my response to that is the same, which is, yes, you may have like.
I mean, look, I'm admitting that there are other factors. Like right now, for instance, I have the option to buy a garage for my car. And you could always say that, well, you can always choose not to get the garage for your car. I'm in one of those apartments that has garages. But if the apartment complex like never bought their garages to begin with, then my rent might be down just because they didn't have to make that significant investment when they first installed those garages, right? So it's not like I can just say, no, I don't want the garage. I mean, I still have an interest in whether or not the apartment goes that way. Right.
But Aiko, if you didn't spend that money in the garage and instead you put it in some stocks that I own, my interest would go up. The value of my holdings would go up.
I'm just saying you can't. Yeah, I'm right. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just saying you can't say that nothing has changed in a world where you have that option.
I agree. When you introduce, and this is the case when you introduce any kind of new commodity or service, you're going to there's going to be a shift, and with any kind of good or service, some people are going to value it, some people who don't. The people who don't value it are going to see a significant portion, or some larger portion of the economy start being dedicated to that. Some people going into work on that. Like, for example,
so
there's a lot of OnlyFans, right? There's a lot of people going into OnlyFans right now that I think would be much better served working in coal mines, right? They are increasing the price of my energy by going on camera and showing their titties, as opposed to mining coal, powering my electricity. I am paying for that.
Sure. So, but it's an ethical issue either way, right? So, like, if I don't believe, because I think the answer to people saying, well, it's morally wrong to make that transaction, and you can say, yeah, but you're choosing not to make that reaction anyway, so it's not affecting you. But it is, because somebody else's choice is still affecting mine. And so to say that there's no pressure. Well, no, there is still pressure, right? Because you're paying that much more rent.
But it's the same pressure. Right, but it's the same pressure, again, in the sense of, like, if all the OnlyFans people were doing different kinds of labor that benefited me more, because I'm never going to spend my money on that shit. If they were doing labor that benefited me more, it would affect my life as well. And the fact that OnlyFans exists, therefore, negatively affects me. This is true. But I just, as a principle,
in fact, I've made this argument with regards to OnlyFans long before I thought about it with regard to this rent scenario, because I do think that if you live in a world where a lot of people can meet their rent with sex work, then the people who choose not to do that, now they have to work that much harder to make up for the fact that they're not making that immoral choice. Yeah, and now you are pressuring women into going into OnlyFans who probably shouldn't, right? I mean, I think people who do OnlyFans ultimately end up regretting it.
Sure, but again, this is also the case if you have alcohol and tobacco be legalized. People are buying that instead of investing in the economy.
I think it's fair to factor that stuff in with regards to
Sure.
I mean, for the same reason we make certain drugs illegal, there have been plenty of people who question whether or not alcohol being as freely available as it is, what impact does that have on people over the long term? Morally, I think it's fair to consider that.
I want to speak here. One thing, I've moved quite a bit from my original position now. I think this is actually a good thing for the men. I feel like we were all looking at this mainly from like the what if on the women's side, but this is good for the men now. Think about all these gold diggers, these 304s, these TikTok hoochie mamas. They're all coming in and they're bamboozling the men. These poor men. I've been hearing that. All the red pill been talking about how terrible ththese hoochie mama hoes are. That's all they talk about all the time. And Ben, now we have something. If this becomes commonplace, we'll be able to tie an exact financial amount to every sexual act for the average woman. So we can be like, oh, this 7 over here, she's paying, it's about $300 a BJ. Oh, $250 a fucking smash. Now you'll have an exact number. So when these hoochie mamas try to get you out of thousands of dollars, you'll be like, well, hey, you know what? I can be getting the same thing. Yeah, I can make the same thing.
But now we'll have an objective way. You're saying we'll have an objective way to rank people on the 10 scale?
I'm just saying it'll be exactly. You'll be able to factor in like.
I mean, is she really a 7? Well,
but they do this.
She's a 20.
Like in Germany. Like where it's legal, for example, they have these giant
buildings. But it's not common here, and this is what we're bitching about the Miami hoes, the LA hoochies. Like I'm just saying. It's
also still like I don't know if it's the same way. Like I know in some places in Nevada it's legal. I'm sure they probably have a similar system where it's like the girl who's a little bit older, less attractive, she's probably gonna command less from the market than the girl.
She has more skills, more wisdom, more experience.
Well, I'm sorry, but the market just doesn't really value that.
It depends on what you're going in for, right? If you're just going in for looks, but if you're going in for like the experience.
But Lactoid's point is if there are skills that increase their value, then you'll see that in the amount of money.
Exactly.
Wait, Lactoid, do they charge us money?
I don't know.
It's actually Lactoid if you know.
I only know this because
not firsthand.
Not firsthand, but based on my line of work, I'm like tangentially, observing criminal world. It absolutely is the case that like prostitutes charge based on
not in like the Bunny Ranch in like Nevada.
I'm talking about even the black market, right? Even in the black market,
there was a
really ugly
there used to be a
prostitute's going to charge way less than a really attractive one.
There used to be a documentary series, I remember, on one of those ranches down in Nevada.
Bunny Ranch, yeah.
The Bunny, yeah. And there was one older a woman who her name was Air Force Amy.
Air Force
I
Amy,
remember
yeah.
them talking
Remember
about
that.
how she was much older than the other girls, but she had like steady clientele. And I think I remember her saying something like about how much her rate went up after she got a boob job. So they did have a sense of the market value of all of
MILF is a big
do.
market. Just because someone's older doesn't mean
I'm
much.
talking about on average.
Yeah. So I don't. So I think the math is a lot more complicated than you might think there, Lactoid. Because like I told you guys about and I've been very honest about this, right? I had a stripper phase, right? And I had
Colombian stripper phase.
Well, the Colombians are the best strippers.
I didn't know you were open about that, by the way. So I've been very careful not to talk about that to people. But go ahead.
I talked about that on stream.
I know you had before, but I'm saying I knew this before you, I guess, had talked about it on the stream after. Maybe you had already done it even beforehand. But I keep going. I don't mean to distract.
Okay, it's fine. No worries, friend. But thank you for trying to be discreet.
Yeah, of course.
I really appreciate that. But yeah, so I'll tell me about this. I had to get a stripper phase, and one of the conversations I had with one of the strippers is hey, how how do you make your money, right? And who's making a lot of money in these establishments? And they talked about well, all you have to do is be different from the pool, right? The pool of available people. So if you are in an establishment with mostly white strippers, you want to be the one black girl, right? Because anyone who likes black girls who comes to that establishment, they're going to come to you, right? You get all that money, and then you can charge more or whatever, right? Opposite is true, right? If it's all the mostly black individuals, you want to be the white girl, you want to be the Latin girl. If it's mostly the young women, be the older woman, right? Because that older woman, there's a market specifically for that. So
is that why you're the only black guy on the panel?
And that's why I make so much money. You can all see. But yeah, that's
true. He gets all the donations. We don't get anything.
I do have one donation coming
as an indulger in the dark side of the world.
Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with that. Alexander Wynn, this is to Lactoid, what you were saying previously. That's not true. People who choose another job than a coal miner don't affect you as directly as people who find alternative ways to pay rent that causes your rent to go up to make up the difference. Thank you so much, Alexander Wynn, for $20.
I don't think that's true. I think it affects you in as similar or direct way. They are the landlord is spending, right, because he's not incoming. Not receiving and spending are the exact same things. He is spending $1,500 on not on sex really at this point, instead of his mortgage, right? In the same way that I suppose somebody might be spending money on to make it a little more direct, spending more money on OnlyFans as opposed to their mortgage. So I guess maybe in the sense of somebody doing OnlyFans instead of working in the coal mine is 2 orders of separation removed as opposed to 1 order of separation removed. But I don't see it as a huge problem. I think it's the same logic applies. People make market decisions for themselves that affect the market that can negatively affect me. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that I should have the right to stop them.
Okay.
I do think the rate would be more in this scenario, just like with my garage scenario, which is what I'm actually living through in the real world. But that doesn't necessarily mean Lactoid's principle doesn't apply. It just means that it's a greater ratio for the sex for rent scenario. I don't think that ratio is what changes anything. I'm just saying that you are pressuring other people to do the same thing, because if they don't, then their rent is going to be higher than in a world where they didn't have that choice. And so that's more pressure in one world than in another.
I will say this. I think that on aggregate, my prediction is that, especially with the amount of corporate landlords there are, and with the amount of actually financially interested landlords there are, I would bet you that allowing this would probably affect, assuming that I rented, my rent less than the overall economic impact from just the sheer number of people who do OnlyFans and the people who spend money on them.
I mean, yes, one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of OnlyFans. Like, I think that anytime that you have like a significant, like, sort of difference in income available to a class of people who make a particular choice, then you're making it difficult to make another choice. You're making it that much more difficult to make another choice.
Wait a minute. Sure. I want to fight you on this.
Okay.
But I think Aiko's right. I agree with that.
No, I want to fight you guys on this, but give me a second. Before
I don't think that helps me.
Before we go on that,
probably. That's probably a point against me.
Just a quick thing, because this is something we Gibbs and I stumbled upon when we were talking previously about recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Gibbs was saying that in Texas you can't record a person secretly, at least without their knowledge, right? So something I want to know,
specifically for sex.
For sex?
Yes, but for sex, you can do like it's a one-party recording straight for everything else, but for like sex stuff, it's not.
Okay. So then it doesn't affect what I was talking about. So like, what I wouldn't say record the sex, I was saying record the offer, right? Like the landlord comes to you and says like, hey, you got to have sex with me to stay in here. Record that, right? And then that's all you need. You don't need to actually.
That's extortion.
Sex that, yeah. But I still I can ask a question on Lactoid. As far as you know, because I know you're not like, licensed in every state. In states where it's a two-party system, right? Like both parties have to agree. Yeah, two-party consent. Like, what if you happen to record a crime, like, and you didn't get consent from the other person, right? Like, the person threatens you, or something, right? And there happened to be a recording of this. Like, can you not use that as evidence? Period. It's like completely done.
That's really tough because I actually know a situation in which that did come up, where it was like somebody who recorded themselves being sexually harassed by one of their coworkers, and it was two-party consent. And the question is, like, could you even use that footage? And if I remember correctly, like, there was a possibility that it could be tossed out, but it wasn't guaranteed. I wish I had a better answer for you. That's a really good question. I think it probably depends on the crime.
Yeah, this is coming. I've asked this of a lawyer friend of mine once before because it came up like at a debate tournament, and he said was in our state, in Texas at least, he said that it matters whether or not the person being recorded was denying the conduct didn't happen, that the conduct happened. So like if he was saying, no, it didn't happen, and you have a recording that proves that it does, then that sort of counts as consent. Whereas if it wasn't relevant to the claims that he or she was making, then you're not allowed. Then you're not allowed.
Look, I'm in a one-party state, so I never have to deal with this, thankfully.
Okay.
But in two-party states, I understand it. My understanding is that it does get tricky because there are circumstances in which that evidence might get thrown out.
He also said that it was like not a guaranteed thing, but he said that if the person that supposedly didn't consent to the recording was denying the conduct that's on the tape, so then that might count as consent. But I don't.
That's an interesting idea. Well, it's something we'll have to research sometime because I think that's super interesting. Fair enough. Thanks, Lactoid. But okay, so could you guys repeat your claim? You made an awful claim, Aiko, and I want to make sure I have it correct.
Aiko's not a fan of OnlyFans.
Oh,
he's a fan.
That if something like OnlyFans becomes a significant source of income for a large enough percentage of the population, then it becomes a significant disadvantage to choose not to engage in that same activity. So it becomes like a cost. And at some point, like it would be like, I don't know, being the one being a girl in one of those French towns that was sleeping with the Nazis. If you're one of the girls that didn't sleep with the Nazis, your lifestyle is going to get significantly worse, right?
Yeah, no, fuck this. Hold on. You can apply that to anything, right? But the thing that we choose to apply,
I think he does apply it to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I was consenting. Like, I was agreeing. Like, Lactoid was saying that if you do it in the one scenario, you have to do it in the other scenario. What I'm doing is I'm conceding. I'm saying, yeah, I am applying it in more than one scenario.
Yeah, but hold on. I've talked to a lot, and this doesn't come up. You haven't presented this argument for a whole bunch of other scenarios, right? So, like,
well, I do make a distinction between what I think is moral and what I think should be legal. Those are two different things.
Well, hold on. Let me get it out here, right? So, hedge fund managers, right?
Yeah.
That job exists. They make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
Right. There should be there is a market pressure, right, or market advantage, or whatever you would call it, to being a hedge fund manager,
right?
Hedge fund manager,
right?
But we don't look at it as like corrosive within our economy in the same way, right? Even though I think the job is actually far more destructive than anything on fucking OnlyFans and makes far more money, right? We don't in our society look at it as some sort of moral detriment.
Yeah, but I do. And I know we've had this conversation before about how we talk about where's the line where the point of concentration of wealth is so great that it harms everyone else to such a degree that it, like, this is the whole conversation about how being a millionaire isn't so bad, but being a billionaire is. Where you would draw that line is certainly debatable, but there are plenty of people who will tell you that the existence of billionaires or the existence of that kind of wealth concentration starts to make society break down, right? Because money can't flow. Right. So the way that billionaires affect everybody else absolutely is relevant to that conversation.
No, that's different. That's a different argument. Yeah, I agree that billionaires are bad, but for completely different reasons from this. It's not that because billionaires exist, it's going to force other people to be billionaires. That's not the argument that I.
No. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you have billionaires right now, we're starting to think about the coming of trillionaires, which is coming. You're getting to the point where, when billionaires and trillionaires or whatever, when they get their money, often, there's very few ways for them to spend it. They don't spend it, and so money doesn't circulate in the way that it does when.
Sure, but relate this to the OnlyFans thing. What's the argument that relates these two?
Okay. So I'm just saying that with the OnlyFans thing, or not OnlyFans specifically, but I'm just saying if more women supplement their income in this way in order to make it, then women who don't have the ability to do that kind of supplementation increasingly are suffering because other women don't have to look at their income in the same way because they're adding whatever it is that they're adding on top of it.
This seems like a worse argument than I thought it was. I thought you were saying. Okay. I thought you were saying something different. This is worse, though. You're saying that women who cannot engage in OnlyFans somehow suffer.
Not cannot, choose not to. Women who choose not to. Yeah,
choose not to. They somehow suffer. How do I suffer because Ali has a side hustle that I choose not to do? Right. Ali is
okay. So let's say we have a system where, we like landlords know not to charge rent above a certain amount, right? Because they won't be able to find people who can pay that rent, and they know sort of where that line is, and that's where they draw it.
Sure.
If an increasing number of people choose Ali's line of work, right, of being a gigolo, whatever it is, right?
Then, a good juggalo.
Right. Then there comes a point at which people who choose not to do that aren't being factored into the calculations of the people who are setting rent. And so there's going to be increasing pressure for you to make money in the way that other people can make money.
Wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. it'd be one thing if OnlyFans was the only other option to make extra income within the economy. Then maybe you have an argument there, right? Like, well, the only way that I can actually make this elevated.
What's the number one reason people will give when they're interviewed about this sort of thing as to why they choose that work? It's that they can't make the same amount of money in as short a period of time or with the less amount of effort as they can.
Sex work is lucrative. Yes.
Right. So that means everybody else, by comparison, is having to work that much harder in order to reach the same income.
This is a ludicrous argument. It's ludicrous, right? Like to say that that our economy is so simple and uncomplex that this has an appreciable effect on the rest of us, right?
It depends on how you measure it. You can measure.
And this works against the other argument people make about OnlyFans, right? People say that, well, most of you, and this is what like Lacto, part of what Lacto was alluding to previously, I'm talking about like the regret that people have in OnlyFans, right? Part of that regret is that, oh, I didn't make enough money. I put myself out there, but in the end, I barely made any money. There is like, and just like with Twitch, right? This is the same thing in social media, right? Like the amount of people who have like 1 viewer, 2 viewer, 10 viewers, right? There's a whole bunch of people at the very bottom, and then like break through the 20, like you're in like the top 1%, right?
92%,
like at the very top,
92% less than 4 viewers.
Yeah, exactly, right? So then the most of the market, the vast majority of the market is blah. So like it makes. So to say that those people make so much of an impact, in the same math is true for OnlyFans, right? We say that small amount of people make such a big impact in the market that it would encourage other women to also do this is ridiculous.
Well, I didn't say that we were there, but I was just.
We'll never be there.
A bunch of girls are being encouraged to do this because they think it's going to be easy. Just they fail at it, right? And then they have
Lactoid's argument was. When Lactoid was making his argument, the reason I was defending him, even though I was on the other side of it, was because I was saying that the principle of his argument is no different. It's just that by the numbers, we weren't there yet. Like it's the same thing here. The principle of the argument is that if you have people that are engaging in some immoral activity, pressure on everybody.
How many women?
But it could, but it doesn't mean that we're there yet. It doesn't mean that the numbers are
how many people have to be engaging in OnlyFans and similar platforms for this to have an appreciable effect on the economy?
I mean, it depends. I mean, if the economy crashes, it'll become a much bigger deal. It'll become a much.
What do you mean by economy crashes? What do you mean by appreciable?
What does he mean by appreciable? He's saying that there's like some sort of level where this has an effect. I don't even know what he means by appreciable.
There's no line. There is. It's entirely. It's not entirely linear.
It's a sliding scale.
But it's going to be a sliding scale. Like you have
the exploitation of it goes higher. As the income, the number of people who need it in order to meet whatever threshold they need to meet, like pay rent or whatever it is.
1 more than 2, 2 more than 3.
Changes over time. Yeah.
Like with any, you're muted, but like with any job. Audio issues? No. Okay, good.
No. I was having audio issues. Sorry, I was doing something. Apologies, friends. I didn't. If you could be so kind as to repeat what you said.
Go ahead, Aiko. I think it was.
Repeat what I said?
Repeat. Sorry, Lactoid. You were saying.
All I said is
asking about.
The question is like, my understanding of the question. Maybe I'm sorry if I missed something. Is how many people would have to be doing OnlyFans in order for it to appreciably affect the economy, in terms of the lack of other people doing stuff, the lost income going into this industry. There's not going to be a line. This is going to be entirely just 1 more than 2, 2 more than 3, 3 more than or what I'm saying.
It's a sliding scale. It's a spectrum,
scale, right? If one person doing OnlyFans has a very small effect on the entire U.S. economy.
So that's why I said appreciable. Yes, I put everything has an effect on like the complex machine that is the U.S. economy. Obviously, right? Understood, right? But he's saying that there is going to be some sort of, in his mind, corrosive effect, right? That will pull people to start.
There already is that
OnlyFans.
cursor effect.
OnlyFans is
That-
already doing that, yeah, for sure.
No, hold on. He's saying that like it'll affect rent. No. There are
Surely
people
it is.
who want. Sorry, what?
Sure, I'm sure OnlyFans is having some kind of effect on rent right now. Yeah.
Some kind of tiny effect. Yes, you can say it can have some kind of tiny effect on rent, but because again, yes, everything has an effect on this complex machine, right? But appreciable that like, hey, people are actively making the decision. Hey, because all these, and remember specifically the way he laid it out was that the landlords will raise prices because now we can bump up like the cutoff point was $2,000, right? $2,000 was the point where you could find enough people to pay the price of your commodity, right? But now I'm bumping it up to $2,200, right? Because all these people, all these women at least, have extra income, right? When is the point where rents go up? Specifically because there are so many people who are on OnlyFans, not just on OnlyFans, but successful on OnlyFans, to the point that landlords would make such a decision.
I mean, I think we've already answered it. Like you're saying it's an appreciable
You haven't.
effect. Well,
You haven't. Hold on.
we-
Give me
we
any
can-
evidence. You said it's already been the case, right?
Yeah, it
give
has
me
to.
any evidence that landlords. Well, give me any evidence that landlords have bumped up the price, right? Because they're like, well, more people are doing OnlyFans, so they have more extra income, so that they can pay more. That the income of women collectively has bumped up. Specifically, give me this: that the income of women, right, within the United States, we can just use that, right, has bumped up to some level that now is being taken advantage of by others within the market, right? Like sorry, let me rephrase this because it sounds messy. Sorry. Has OnlyFans like raised up the average wealth of women? Has it done that? Can we establish that?
In the United States? Well, hold on. Again, we're saying it's a sliding scale,
done
not
it by
that
a
there's
dollar?
one point at which beyond which suddenly no one can afford rent.
No. Has it done by a dollar? Has
Yeah.
OnlyFans, the extra income from OnlyFans, has that raised the average wealth of women by a dollar?
Oh, no.
Sure.
No,
hold on.
it hasn't-
I go. Why are you
I
saying
don't-
no? Why not?
The average wealth of women, like the
average wealth of
making
women, and
more
there's not
money.
enough
No,
women
sorry,
because
not
of
the
OnlyFans?
average. Maybe
No.
median is probably what I'm looking for. Median is probably what I'm looking for.
No. Hold on. Whether it be average or median, are you asking if OnlyFans like from where it was before, or
Like, has
in a
OnlyFans
vacuum?
made
has it
more
raised to
girls
the full
rich? Is
dollar?
that what you're saying?
No,
So, like, I'm
Hold on,
saying
wait, hold on.
Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, there's two questions. Has
Okay.
it raised the wealth of women by a dollar in a vacuum, or has it raised the wealth of women by a dollar, accounting for all the millions of other things that are occurring in the economy? Because the answer to A is, of course, yes. The answer to B is, I don't know.
No. Actually, I don't
Well,
know
hold
if the
on.
answer of A is, of course, yes. Wait a minute. Like,
Well,
Why
it absolutely
wouldn't
has.
it? Why wouldn't it?
Hold on.
Hold on, it absolutely
Listen.
has.
we're talking about, especially we're talking about the median, not the average. But if we're talking about like the median, there is such a tiny amount of women making an incredible amount of money in OnlyFans, right? Like that I would say that it hasn't like a raise of women's income, like specifically from this legal form of sex work. Are you
Wait,
saying
wait.
that it has like there's enough
are
women
you-
that
are you
have
saying-
that needle?
Are you saying by a dollar? Are you saying like, are you asking for a literal measurement of a dollar, or are you saying like
Literal measurement for $1, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's definitely raised their net worth, but I don't know if it's by a whole dollar.
It has to be. it
Not
has
even
to be
by a
some-
whole dollar.
Well,
Wait,
hold on. It's got to be some substantial amount because, like,
Is
if we're
it?
only talking about America, for sure, then maybe we can talk about less than $1. But if you're talking about some of these chicks that have become OnlyFans just by having a phone and they're in their like small little country, they maybe raise the net wealth of their whole little towns in some of these areas.
I
mean, that
don't-
might be
Just look it
very
up in
small
Calcutta.
scale.
It's 50,000 sex workers.
Right. So
And-
like
and
what?
many women in that part of the world, if
Yeah,
they
so-
don't do sex work, they're not making rent.
But the other thing I want to
Hold
factor
on,
in here is
hold on.
Ali said this already. Is most women
I
are
can't
not in
mix
that top
multiple
10.
things here.
Hold on, but with Ali said something as well. He said, okay, they're not in the top 10%. They're not making that much. It's the supplemental income. How many of these women now can like, oh, I spend 1 day a month and I make a bunch of porn content, and then I work my normal 9 to 5, and then I post this throughout the month, and now I have an extra $500 to spend. Like that's the women that are making like, but it's more of a regular impact. And by that metric, yeah, I definitely think it's raised the average woman's income some portion.
No.
Overall.
If we're talking about an average, then everything can raise the average quite easily, right? Anything can raise the average quite easily. That's why I amended it to median, because the median's much harder to change. So like specifically OnlyFans, because OnlyFans is the thing that was brought up. Specifically OnlyFans, like, are there enough women making enough money? Because many of them make almost nothing, right? Like, as we just discussed, right? There's this very sharp, angled graph, right? And at the pinnacle are the people who are making an appreciable, not appreciable, a significant amount of money. There, right? A livable wage, right? And then above that, right, way above that, are the ones who are actually making millions of dollars. So that's why I'm asking: has OnlyFans actually even raised it $1? Now you guys aren't even sure that's raised it $1. Like you aren't even sure it's raised it a single median.
I don't know about the
yes,
median. But then again,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can point to any one industry. I mean,
exactly. That's my point. You can't especially an industry as small as this. That's why I asked Aiko specifically, hey, how many women in the U.S. would have to join? It'd have to be all of them.
okay, but Prime,
join.
the same kind of question could be posed to you. Has landlords banging their tenants for rent money increase your rent by $1? You got proof of that?
No, but I don't. What would that?
So does it increase rent or not?
Hold on. Sorry, I don't know how this relates in the same way. You're saying, hey, sorry, like help me.
Because the whole
here.
reason we're on OnlyFans is we're talking about like things that people do that can have a market effect, and so and it came from the conversation of.
I wasn't making that argument though. That's Aiko's argument. That's not my argument.
Okay, so you don't even agree with it. You don't think that landlords banging their tenants for rent, you don't think it's going to affect rent prices at all?
I think it could at some point, but I don't know. I don't know at what point. And that wasn't my problem with that situation.
It might make them go down.
I said
the prices go down.
It could
like,
de-stress landlords so much that they work that much harder to provide us housing.
or like I said, they turn it into a thing where they have to give out the blowjobs.
That's my argument.
Then you got a brothel, you're double dipping.
That's for Aiko. That's not for me, right? My problem was that there just being a coercive effect on the tenants, right? When the landlord makes the offer, not necessarily that like it was going to increase everyone else's rent. So that's not my concern. So like again, Aiko, you're making a claim that OnlyFans will.
I wasn't making the claim just about OnlyFans. It's just we were talking about alternative examples in which the same principle applies.
You related exactly this to OnlyFans, and I challenge you on OnlyFans specifically, right? And so, Lactoid, do we have enough women? And you said this is happening now, right? You're saying this is having an effect now. I asked you about that. You said now.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I said
now,
it's by the laws of economics, it is having some effect. The extent of that effect, I don't know. I don't know the extent of that effect.
Yes, that's why it acts as appreciable. So it's so small that we can't even be sure to exist. Maybe in some tiny way through the butterfly effect.
We know it.
Sure.
Well, we know it does.
But like, have an effect. That's why an effect is different from an appreciable effect. And to measure that, I said, yes, raising the median income of women by $1. Appreciable. That's an appreciable effect. That's why I asked it. $1
okay.
Has OnlyFans raised the median income of women by $1 fucking dollar. And they're like, probably not.
I don't know.
Then.
I don't know.
Not
It's probably in some countries it's raised it by thousands of dollars.
Sorry,
you know,
we're
like-
talking about the. I'm sorry. I don't.
Well,
know
because
about
we're talking about
I don't know if
Canada.
that's even true. I don't even know that's true.
Well, think about it. If
No,
you
I'm not going to think about it. No, I'm not going to think about it. You're going to provide
Well,
me
that's what
evidence.
you asked. You said a
You're gonna-
appreciable
no,
number.
I'm not going to think about it. You're going to provide me evidence. That's what I've been asking for is evidence. Hey, has OnlyFans raised the median income by a single dollar of women? And then no. So like, okay, that's appreciable. That's the line I've drawn in the sand. And
Well, I
it's
don't
not
think anyone has said no. I
So-
think the answer you've been getting is I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I
not
don't.
the same
Yeah, okay, great. So then we don't know. So we can't make this claim. We can't actually make this claim that it's having any significant impact on the economy. That's the thing I was pushing back on.
I mean, we
And
see
then apparently-
anecdotes.
and
I
that's
don't
what
think. I don't think we have studies of it. I think we've seen anecdotes. Plenty of people have seen
Yeah,
anecdotes.
there's anecdotes, just
But-
like our friend Gibbs is about to give
Yes.
us. So any which way, until we have that evidence, right, that this even exists, right? Well, then, like I don't think it's something we should believe. Correct, Lactoid? Until we have the evidence, we shouldn't believe it. Isn't that how you operate, Lactoid? Huh?
Are you
Like,
memeing right now? What the fuck? What the fuck
I'm
is
not
this
memeing.
shit?
Oh,
No,
I'm not-
it's like saying lactoid. But you pay taxes. So are you contributing to the U.S. Treasury? And I'm like, yes, I am. Oh, by what amount? What percentage? Even 1%? Is it appreciable? Is it having any kind of appreciable effect on the U.S. Treasury? Even by half a percentage? Even by 1/10 of a percentage? I'm going to say probably not. Probably all the money that I'll pay in taxes.
Therefore, do not pay taxes.
Yeah, therefore, all the money that I've ever paid in taxes and ever will pay in taxes is likely a rounding error on the overall money that's going into the U.S. economy.
Hey,
that doesn't mean I'm not paying
making-
taxes.
Hey, I'm not making the claim that this has no effect. I'm making the claim that does have an I'm asking if does this have an appreciable effect? Our friend Iko made a specific claim about the effect it was having on the economy, right? A specific claim.
No,
Some-
well, hold on.
some effect.
I was making an analogy to
You
the original analogy about rent, and I was saying OnlyFans can operate on the same principle as this scenario about rent. But also going through my head was, I don't know, like Les Mis, when that poor woman has to sell her teeth and her hair and all this other
you
stuff.
specifically.
That probably didn't make an appreciable
You
effect on the French
specifically-
economy either.
you
It
specifically
still has a
talked
moral
about
impact.
how this would raise prices. I would raise
Yeah,
prices.
Ultimately,
Okay.
it could.
How is it raising? So
I'm
if
saying,
we-
yeah,
how
because
can it
clearly,
raise
when
prices?
because if more people can pay rent, like if there's somebody else who's on OnlyFans who can get this apartment, who otherwise couldn't get this apartment, this other
How
person
many
would have been able to
women
get that
have
apartment.
enough money. Okay, let's try absolute numbers then. How many women have enough money that they can afford an apartment that another woman cannot afford an apartment, specifically because
I don't know that there's been
No, we
studies on that.
No, but yeah, hold on. This is why I brought up the Twitch,
I know.
right? Within social media, it's the same thing. How many people can live off Twitch specifically, right? You can ask a similar question there, right? And then I'd even accept that. What you could do, is find out how many people are making enough money with whoever estimates have been made.
Probably a similar ratio. Yeah.
I have a way that you can look at this.
one second. To live off of Twitch, right? And then multiply that by how many ever active OnlyFans accounts are. We can assume they're all women. We just make that assumption. And then figure out how many of them are making a livable wage, right? And then we can see if that amount, however that amount is in the U.S. specifically, right?
Sure.
Would make an impact, right? There's a way we can work this out.
Okay, so then what's that number?
You're the one who made the claim.
No. Now you're saying this is just like the claim for Twitch, and since we can get that number for Twitch, then we can get that number for OnlyFans.
Hold on.
It's so easy to get that number for Twitch, then we'll have the Twitch number.
Hold on.
You can make that. You
So,
can find
okay.
this number. I'm not gonna work for you.
Let me. I got these numbers. So here's
Move
the
your
thing.
claim.
Hold on. I got the numbers right. So, of the whole website, this is men and women on OnlyFans. 37% of creators earn less than $100. Okay.
Okay.
A monthly. Of all creators, though, only 63% are women. Okay. The average woman creator makes approximately $2,000 a year.
Okay.
And what they're saying the average woman creator is by this is by GitNux or whatever. It says the average woman creator is someone that is either a beginner or with a small audience, or a part timer, and they're factoring only people that only been in a year max. So like they had to at least put something up and have an account for over a year. Is basically what they're
What, a year max or year minimum?
Well, year minimum. Sorry, yeah, year minimum. Like that's what they're factoring here. So if you begin and quit after like a year or before a year, then you're not counted in this for whatever reasons. So, but that's saying all these people fall in this category. And basically, the average person that's doing it yearly is making about $2,000 annually, and that's a part timer working less than like I don't know whatever part time. That's working part time, so that's pretty good. And I don't know what they call part time.
Not $2,000 a month. Like to be clear, you're saying $2,000 annually.
Yeah,
annually, $2,000 annually. Okay. All right. So let's bring out the calculator here. All right.
That's about $170 a month. I've done this.
About 20% of creators.
$170 a month.
Yeah,
about 20% of creators generate their entire income from OnlyFans. So that's pretty good, I guess. I don't know. But then the top 10% make a third of all the money.
So $170 for the average creator. And now we don't know how many. It's at 63%.
About $200 a month.
That's global.
$200
That's not even just the US.
Right.
But okay, I'll give you a break. I'll let you use the same numbers globally as for the US, even though it probably doesn't match. So let's give it to you. So 63% of them are making $170 a month, right? And this is
the most recent numbers, by the way, are reported from 2023. So that's the most recent numbers that they have reported.
And so, and then we have to figure out how many women within the U.S. are actually doing OnlyFans. And whatever it is, my claim is that this will not be enough to push up by an appreciable fact $1. $1 in rent prices, not $1 in rent prices. Would this push it up? Not even $1. I'm sure maybe by a cent, right? Because Lactate wants to needle me on an effect. Yes, a cent, maybe a cent, but not $1. I win. I'm amazing. I love myself. Okay. Anyway,
okay. Median income for a woman in the United States working full time is $1,000 a week. So let's say you're making, what was it, $170?
You're making about $200 a month.
$170.
$200 a month.
And you're looking at $200 a month, so that's a 20% boost in income? Oh, yeah, per month. I'm sorry. That's a 5% boost in income.
Okay.
Approximately. Yeah.
And how many women are having that boost?
That's $200 a month. You're telling me that an extra $200 a month won't push rents up by $1?
But how many women are engaging in that? That's the problem.
That's the average.
Every woman at this point, honestly.
It's 2%.
Well, yeah.
I don't think it's everyone.
No, it's 2%. 2% of American women are on OnlyFans. Now, I wasn't strictly speaking, talking only about OnlyFans. That I was talking about anyone engaged in this kind of activity, whether it be OnlyFans, other kinds of sex work, whatever. Work that other populations would consider to be immoral, and they're sacrificing that income in order to keep a moral life or whatever. And there are some women for whom that number would be much higher if they chose to go into that income, right? Because they're particularly young or hot or whatever.
The reason why it's worth it to look at OnlyFans is specifically because you can declare that income. Other than because in the US you couldn't declare your
there's pragmatic reasons to look at OnlyFans. But what I'm saying is what I'm saying is if it is a $200 boost in income per month, you don't think that $200 results in at least $1 of rent?
No, I don't. No, make the math work for me, right? You're saying 2%.
2% of women are on OnlyFans.
And remember, not all that 2% are making even the average, right? Because with Gibson,
that's why I went with median and not average.
Okay, well then we have to figure out the median. I don't know what the median is.
The median was $170.
No, that wasn't the 100%. No, that was the average.
No, I looked up the median. Well, you can look it up again.
Oh, you looked it up. Sorry. If you looked it up, sorry. I'm not sure. You're saying you looked it up. Okay, then
it was $170. So I mean, the average that we got from Gibbs was $200. whatever.
Great.
It's not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So then,
that's
so
the
then,
median.
so then, among those women, how many of them are in apartments, right? Rather than in any other living situation, how many of them are in a situation where they aren't dependent on their partners, right? Their partners are the main breadwinners paying for the apartment. How
Some
many
of them have sugar daddies? They don't have to pay rent at all. I get it.
No, well, there could be that too, or they could just have boyfriends being the same thing. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But like, there's like, I'm saying that the cohort of women specifically who are paying rent, who are on OnlyFans, making like the median amount. If you're saying it's 170, I'll take your word for it, right? $170, right? That cohort is so small that no, they cannot raise the rent $1.
Well, let me ask you this: is that sure? Because all right, so you said 2% of all people are on OnlyFans, all the women.
Oh, that's what he said.
Okay.
2% times 170 is $3.40.
And that doesn't mean they're. And to be clear on that number, right? That's like the people who've made accounts, right?
Right.
Not
okay.
the
Yeah.
ones who are
That's fine.
actually
That's where I was about to go with this. Is then
Yeah.
okay? Let's just narrow it down further. Let's just say it's the average person that's making money, average. So that would cut that down to what, like 60%, 50%, somewhere in that ballpark, right? So let's just cut it down. So that's 1% of women would be making money on OnlyFans. That's like, you know, a decent amount. Like, you know, you're looking at that. So then 0.5%, which is like saying 40% of all women are making over $1,000 a month, right? So that's what further goes on. So then, okay, now you're looking at that. You know, you got an even larger, let's say that's 30% of that number. Like, you're looking at 0.03%. Do you think 0.03% can raise it a couple bucks? Or like, yeah, probably. You know, you don't think so?
Has anybody
Like, the average rate like $1? Like, I mean, how do you know?
Has anybody here worked in an apartment complex? Do you know how they do the formula? Like, if somebody they offer it at a certain rate, and if more than the number of apartments that they have are able to make that rent, then they bump it up. And every month they bump it up again until there's not enough people to lease all the apartments. Then they start going down. It goes like that, and it goes in increments, sometimes of as little as $1. So if somebody comes into your complex and snatches up an apartment at a slightly higher rate, then
sorry, I was assuming, and maybe I didn't make this clear. So I made this unclear. Then I do apologize.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the average like apartment rate across the country. That's what I was referring to, not simply an individual apartment.
But this phenomenon that I'm talking about is happening at each of those apartment complexes, right?
Yeah, and I'm
so
saying
it's going up or down every single month based on those effects, right? So that means there has to be enough people whose rent is high enough to where they've stepped up the kind of apartment that they're buying. That's then going to bump somebody else out of an apartment.
Yeah. So I'm saying. And the claim that
you're saying that hasn't happened by the factor of $1.
Not yes. I'm not saying
even if I take the simplest,
of the women who specifically are the breadwinners and specifically living in apartments, specifically with active accounts, specifically usually, making enough, even the median amount, right, of that tiny cohort. No, I don't think they've raised the national average by $1.
I mean, but already we're talking about, by definition of median, 50% of people on OnlyFans make the median or higher, make $170 or higher. That means half of them make higher than the $170. So I mean,
and then they're
40% make that $1,000 or more.
They may not.
40% make $1,000.
And they may not even be in an apartment. They may not even be the breadwinner. They may not be using their own money there. I'm saying of the women, again, I keep saying it, of the women who specifically are the breadwinners, who specifically are in an apartment, who are specifically have active accounts and have a median account, like that group of women, which is a tiny amount.
Yeah, I think that factor works in my favor, right? Because I think that, for instance, if you're independently wealthy, you're less likely to have an OnlyFans account, right? If you're married and
independently wealthy within,
if you're not the breadwinner in your family, you're less likely to have an OnlyFans account. I'm these are all guesses on my part.
Why these independent? Women who have who are lawyers, who have law degrees, who have advisors, they engage in sex work.
Okay. So now you're the one making a claim. Tell me, what percentage of OnlyFans people are lawyers?
I have no idea, but
all right. No. That's your burden now.
Wait a minute.
Just
hold on,
posted the
hold on,
stats thing. Yeah,
Right.
this thing.
Stop trying to shift the burden to
Hold
me.
on, hold on.
right?
This is pretty
Because you have
interesting.
been-
You just
one second,
made-
one second,
hold on.
one second. Hold on.
I just posted
I
some
get
stuff.
what you're trying. Hold on, one second. Hold on. I get you're trying to shift the burden to
Yeah, I
me.
think Gibbs is answering your question right now.
Hold on. Hold on. One thing at a time. We'll handle Gibbs. I think you're trying to shift the burden to me because like everything I've given you, even reasonable of metrics, right, to match, you haven't been able to show. You haven't been able to show.
I looked at.
So, like,
I looked at.
all I
two of
was
your
saying,
metrics.
all I was pushing back on, all I was pushing back on is that like
Well, I gotta grab my
you're
phone,
saying
my
it's
battery's
so
gonna
much,
die. I gotta go get my plug.
All
I
right.
can hear you. Though.
Hold on. This is pretty in-depth stats. I just posted a link, so if you want to double check what I'm about to read you. But it says male creators account for approximately 20% of the platform's content producers. The median income for all creators on OnlyFans is roughly $1,800 annually. The platform's top earners can make up to $200K a year or $200K per month. Female creators tend to earn an average of $2,000 per month, whereas male creators earn about $700. And then it goes on, and then later you'll see the thing where the 40% make over $1,000. So it looks like females' average earnings is $2,000 a month on OnlyFans. Like that's pretty
What
substantial.
about the
amount.
median?
Well, the median for overall median is $1,800 annually.
So
Whoa, really?
I got a
But that's not
Alexander
good for women.
Wynn, $10. You guys realize that $1,000 comes at the cost of other income they may have been able to get.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I would argue no, because it's like
maybe.
it classifies this as part timers at one point in this thing. And the other thing
Yeah.
is, if you go and spend, like I said, I know some women that do this, and they'll go and spend like one day at like a motel or something, or they'll spend one day like maybe every other month, every other week, and they'll film a whole bunch of sets, and they'll like just do it all that day, and then they just post that on a timer throughout the
Yeah.
month, and and
Those
then
are
they just run
pros,
special.
Gibbs.
Yeah, and then at the end they run special. I mean, these are like girls that don't have are not pros. They I know they have realty jobs or the realtors, or they have a normal job, and then they just do this in their free time, and they're making
That's
bank.
pretty fucking risky, man. On
For
the
a
back
realtor,
end,
yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah,
a
I mean,
realtor.
I know a lot of people do
That can hurt your career.
You can also hide your face. You don't necessarily have to show your
I
face.
mean, and also not all of them are fucking. Some of them are just, some of them are
porns
just
never do
like,
as good.
yeah, but sure, but if they're really hot, I can easily see them buying their cosplay outfits and shit, and just locking behind a paywall.
Thank
and
you,
not do sex
Alexander
work.
Wynn, for the $10. Yeah, I don't think the cohort specifically that we're looking at, specifically for the outcome that we're measuring, is big enough. I still don't think it's big enough. And I think it's on you to prove that it is, to raise it by $1. Raise rents, average rents, national rents, by $1. Not enough. Not enough. Of the active number of women, because that's another thing, we don't have like how many people are actually doing it right now. And again, of those people who are who are actually paying the rent in an apartment, I don't think that amount is just enough. I'll give me those numbers. But I'll
How many women do you think it would take? I had to
That's
look
what I
it up.
asked you. That's what I asked you. That's the question I asked you.
1.4
I don't
million.
know how many. I said how many. I asked you how many women in OnlyFans
1.4 million.
to join OnlyFans to have this effect on the economy. And
He's saying
Well, hold on.
1.4 million.
Yeah,
1.4. Sorry, what?
1.4 million.
How
many women are on
of what? Having OnlyFans now is an active account now?
And tell me again, Gibbs, what was that? Did you say it was a median was 2,000 per year or month?
Sorry,
It was 2,000 a year.
Annually.
2,000 per year.
That's for men
Okay.
and women, and then women specifically, the average was 2,000 monthly.
Are there 1.4 million active OnlyFans accounts, or 1.4 million people?
And
who have
here's another
engaged in
stat.
that?
Here's another stat you were asking for. 60% of the people are from the U.S. or Europe. North
Okay,
America and Europe.
that's good.
So
But
that
yeah,
narrows it
sure.
down.
Are there 1.4 million? Sorry, is this 1.4 total? What is 1.4 million?
There are 1.4, according to this, there are 1.4 million American women creators on OnlyFans.
Okay, so
And
what
if they're
I'm
making an average of 2,000,
no, now we can't use all that full number. We have to talk about active accounts, right? A lot of people made accounts and then like they made an account and then they never used the account. They made an account, and then they used it for a little bit amount of time, and then they stopped because it didn't work out or whatever reason. They decided it was a bad idea. So we're talking it's a smaller number, active number of accounts.
They
I'm looking
they
at
have that. They said it's 2.5 years is the average person. That
I mean, you could do a conservative estimate, assuming whatever. Let's say cut 1.4 million in half. Say it's 700,000. I think that was a conservative.
Well, this also says there's there's 1.5 million active creators. What's called active? On average, the active creator posts 2 to 3 times per week, and they have their account open for 2.5 years.
Okay,
that's the information.
And that's globally.
Globally, with 60%
so then
North America.
So then,
or Europe.
so 60% of 1.4 million, or 1.5. I'm sorry, 1.
Yeah.
60% of 1.4 million in the U.S. I guess we're assuming those are all active. Okay, 60% of that.
Well, it's North America and Europe, but yeah.
North America and Europe, of course. So even
I can't get more
America.
specific than that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Okay, this says 4.6 million were women. Wait, 3.86 million were women. And I guess the 1.4 million must be when you hold on, it doesn't say. Oh, total active creators percentage of identified. Okay, it's 4.1 to 4.6 million is the range, and 84% of them are women. So total active creators are 4.1 to 4.6. So we can call that to.
I mean, hard, but then where's that 1.4 million?
4.35 million times 84%.
No, 1.4 million was in the North America and Europe, is what he said. Not.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at different sources.
Okay,
but
but this. Gotta get these numbers down.
This is.
Are those active accounts in the United States? Because they're not active accounts in the United States, then of women, of active female accounts in the United States of women, then that number is useless to me.
It's 84% of the total are active, so that means 16% are inactive, and it's
in United States.
Yes, yes, but hold on, I'm looking at 3 different sources, so I need to find out which source is saying that gives me each of those numbers.
Okay. All right, so continue to work on that.
Okay.
And we'll move on because we've been on this for a while.
Right.
But and it's nearly 10. So when we usually switch.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
But you continue to work on. And
I think this is relevant to our main topic, though. I'll tell you why later.
Okay. All right. I'll take that.
Because Kuma brain is horribly unhealthy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it has consent, but anyway.
So, all right, guys. I took a long time to prove Aiko was completely and utterly wrong. By
another slam dunk for Prime.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you use facts and logic. So thanks all for being here. Much appreciated. For those who stuck around for this very long argument, sorry about that. Yeah, we have a prepared topic on RFK. You didn't read that wrong previously. We just Aiko challenged me, and that's always a bad idea. He's still working on that, and we'll address it later, right? We'll check back on him and his progress later on. Hey everyone, thanks for being here. If you've been enjoying the content, consider supporting the channel, right? Enjoying me yelling at people, getting agitated. Then consider supporting the channel, subs to the channel, get bits of gift subs. If you're on YouTube, consider getting a super chat. We'll put your thing on the screen, right? We're doing that now. Look at this. Like boom, right? This came in a while ago. Boom. There you go. You get your you get a shout out. Also we could just put like regular comments on the screen too. Does that include women who only this guy from Twitch, does that include women who only their families donate money? I don't know what that means. But we can put any of your comments up on screen if you like. So be a part of the stream. And of course, super chats. go a long way. Help support the community. Help keep us around. So support the channel if you can. All right. Just quickly, let's go around introducing people. We have our good friend Lactoid. Lactoid, thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm all right. How you doing? I'm Lactoid. You can find me on Lactoid TV, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Okay. Next, we have a good friend Corey. How are you? Back in your regular digs.
That's right. For better or for worse, I don't know. It might work in my favor if my camera is actually more blurry. I don't have a high quality camera. But regardless, you can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 94, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, Substack. It's Corey Campbell. And as always, looking forward to the topic, especially this one.
Okay. And next we have our friend Admiral Gibbs. Thank you for being here. We had 1 week without you, and that was 1 week too long. Hey, Admiral Gibbs, I just found out this the other night. Did you know that I believe this was
moving some shit? It's gonna be loud, so
I think this was Norway, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Norway. That they had a gathering of redheads, like a multi-day gathering of like redheads, like a redhead convention, and like thousands of redheads, maybe tens of thousands of redheads showed up. Why weren't you there?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because I was at the TikTok conference where they were deciding that redheads are now officially black and have the pass. So I'm excited to be 3 ethnicities now. That's my big thing. I'm pretty excited about. But yeah, I'm Admiral Gibbs. You can find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs.
Okay, thank you so much. Next we go to our friend.
I approve of this banner.
Okay, 1.1 million. Since it's my turn now, this is my introduction. 1.1 million is the total because it is 1.4 million for American women, and 84% of those are active, according to Social Rise.
Okay, great. Now, how many of those women are
they're making a medium of $170. We already determined that earlier. $170 per month.
Median of $170, and how many of them are actually paying the rent in the apartments? In an apartment.
There's no way to know that.
Okay.
But I'm saying if you want to filter out the ones who, like, I still think that you're more likely to open an OnlyFans account if you don't own a house.
Can we figure out how many women in general pay rent an apartment? Like not like of the general population, and then we just extrapolate that into.
I mean, I can look. I don't know if that data is easily found.
Okay.
But
and then we can just do some math here, right? But anyway, thank you, Aiko, for being here. So desperately trying to prove he's right, and flailing.
No. I'm just playing this game where every time someone gives you a statistic you ask for 3 more stats after that.
Hold on.
And you just keep asking until it becomes impossible to answer.
No.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm doing. Wait, hold on.
What's the stat on his requests? How many?
Yeah. What about the stats of the other industries that have grown because of OnlyFans? Yeah. Would you have the economic impact?
No.
That stat?
To be very clear, hold on.
How many of these are landlords with the first initial of an S? Because they're the ones who.
I have not moved the goalpost one bit, right? You guys asked me, Electwood was the one who asked me, hey, what does appreciable mean, right? I said, well, our friend Aiko really made the claim, but still, I gave a number, right? Hey, what does appreciable mean when you asked me that? I said $1. And then I gave you a pathway to actually prove that, right? Because you didn't know the pathway. I
think the goalpost was moved with when you assumed that when I'm talking about, for instance, people who are on OnlyFans, and then you limited that only to people on OnlyFans, as if there's not other kinds of sex work.
We can't. But we can't judge those kind. I understand there's other kinds of sex work, and if you have those stats, we can look at those stats too.
Well, what about fans? Like, would you include fans in with OnlyFans? Probably, right?
Hold on.
Or would you consider like Jerkmate or something like OnlyFans? I don't know. Where's the line?
I would include every strip club.
Or maybe on strip club, but even then, like if you're just doing the online ones,
all sex workers.
Yeah, I was
specifically
like streaming. If you want to streaming like sex work or like photos, I could see maybe a general argument. I just don't know that there is going to be a stats out to what you get to proof is. That's why I was asking when you said appreciable. I appreciate you said $1, right? And that's fair. You don't think that's a big number in the U.S. I think maybe my issue isn't that's not fair. I think it's more. I would say appreciable would be something like a penny, right, or 2 pennies. And the reason I say that is because if it's only 2 pennies in the U.S., well, the exchange rate, overseas with a lot of these countries, if 40% is not North America or Europe, that's a substantial amount in some of these countries for like people that are doing it there. Like, you know what I'm saying? If the average person's making $1,000, $2,000 a month, if you're a woman,
I don't know if they're even making. So the reason one,
well, if they're making $500 in Botswana, do you think they're doing pretty good?
My guy, I don't understand. Like one, how many people are doing this in other countries? I don't understand if there are other factors, other confounding factors that are involved. That's why I'm keeping it simple. I'm trying to keep it simple by limiting this to the United States, right? Rather than saying globally, well, then the even smaller number of people, because internet access is more limited outside of the first world countries, right? That small amount of women will have some level of impact, some greater level of impact within their economy, right? Like that. I think that introduces so many other factors. That's why I'm limiting it to the United States, the place where we should have the most stats when talking about this thing. And so, like, hey, let's try to cross-reference this, right? Let's see how many women. And I'm providing a path. Aiko was lost. He was floundering, right? I threw him a life jacket of.
Hold on. Every time I tried to give you a statistic, you interrupted me with a request for 2 more.
Well, so yes.
That statistic wasn't enough. Because it doesn't get you to the end goal. Hey,
what's the end goal? I think another question is, what would these women be doing otherwise if they weren't doing OnlyFans? I think most of these women would be working like low-paying jobs, menial jobs, or like low-salary jobs, to where that $2,000 a month or $1,000 a month wouldn't be that impactful. But if they were working like more, right? But since they're working those jobs, it's like this is like a plus on their income. I think it is probably measurable. I think the big difference between where you're at, where I'm at, Brian, is that like what you think an appreciable number is like for these people overall.
Okay. All right. So while Aiko is complaining because I've been too reasonable with him, we'll move on to our friend Ali. Ali, thank you for being here.
I did find out going through these stats that there is a job category that I didn't know existed, which is FTEP, full-time equivalent prostitute.
If you mean from the IRS, the IRS allows you to.
I don't know if it's IRS or not, but it's
just
something
so you know,
that social scientists studies. Yeah, 59,000 full-time equivalent prostitutes.
You have to legally report illegal income.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. So I know our friend Lactoid knows this as well. For the IRS, there is a provision to report illegal income. In fact, you have to. And in fact, that's the way they got what was it?
Capone.
Capone. Yep. Because he didn't report. You're actually
even the Joker is afraid of the IRS.
Yeah, and supposedly they're supposed to keep that secret and not share it with law enforcement. I'm curious if that's the case in the Trump. I'm curious if it's the case in the Trump administration right now, because they've been putting a lot of pressure, right, for like immigration and stuff. They've put a lot of pressure on the IRS, so I don't know. But technically, you're supposed to report. And the reason why I want to use OnlyFans specifically is because like they're more likely to report, because that's like straight legal, right? You can't get in trouble for OnlyFans. So they're more likely to report that rather than any other, or most other types of sex work, I should say. Let's go to our friend. Sorry, Ali. Did you have to? Sorry, I kept talking over you. Hi, Ali.
What's up, man? I go by Sociologic on Twitter, which is I've been distracted this whole time by the amount of drama that's going on. It is it's quite interesting. A lot of shit exploding on Twitter from multiple ends. Free my boy Doobie, he ain't do shit wrong. And you know, while we're at it, Free Palestine, they're both the same fight right now.
Absolutely.
So it's all against the Zionist front. So free my boy Doobie. Jesus fuck, the weekend was interesting.
Let's hear it from the frog's mouth. I'm glad my friend Doobie is here. We weren't sure he was going to be able to join originally, but excuse me. I'm sorry, friend. Doobie, tell us how you're doing, and what's this exactly happening on Twitter? So basically what you were talking to me about before. What's going on?
I don't
think
use
he
Twitter
knows yet.
very often, or at all, actually. So I don't know what's been posted on Twitter. But I do know that Destiny has said he's trying to dox me, basically. For actually, not he actually said he's trying to dox me. He would dox me if he got my information. He's trying to frame it as like I'm a part of some like group working in the background to pressure people not to have them on or whatever the fuck, which is totally untrue. Total bullshit. It's never happened. He made this claim about Connor, Wick, Pisco. None. I've asked Connor and Wick already. Neither of them said I ever pressured them to do this. I don't think Pisco would ever say that. I haven't pressured anybody to do anything. I've publicly criticized this guy's retarded and immoral behavior, like everybody else. So I think for whatever reason, he's exceptionally upset that I'm doing it. So yeah, he's trying to dox me apparently, but fuck him, he can suck my dick.
Calling for it on a stream, brother.
Yeah, actually, someone sent me a clip earlier.
Oh, you didn't watch that conversation?
No, I don't watch anything Destiny's in. I like when all that leak stuff happened, and I looked into like other shit that happened before, and I found a lot of lies. Right? Because before I just kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I didn't bother to look into it. But I found a shit ton of lies. Right? Just malicious, obvious lies that I just believed because he said it, right? And these to smear people that were like enemies of his, quote unquote. So when that happened, I just decided to cut ties entirely. Right, want nothing to do with the guy. Don't want to be on any panel with him or stream with him. Just want no part of it, right? But because he's a person that's relevant to the space, and he's like a celebrity here, and we all hang out in the space. Hey, he comes up often because he does dumb shit often. So whenever he comes up, people talk about him, and I talk about him with everybody else. That's it. So somebody did send me the like 2 clips from that stream with Connor. I'm not gonna watch the entire thing. I don't really care to. Somebody sent me a clip of a bit ago where he like. When I was on stream with him and Nick Fuentes and that fucking guy, I forget, Alex Stein, like years ago, I did this meme where I pretended to drop the face cam thing or the face rig thing.
Oh yeah.
With like a black kid. And someone sent that to him and he played it on stream. I think he, for whatever reason, he thought that was actually me for a second or something. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing playing that. But yeah, he's desperate, right, to try to fucking dox me. Which is fine, you know. I don't really care. So, yeah, that's all it is. So to be clear, I think he's just proving the criticisms that I've had of him, which is that he's like a impulsive moron who does a lot of dumb shit just all the time. So like, yeah, I don't know if you don't want people talking about you, don't do dumb shit. Like I don't know what to say.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm Doobie, by the way.
And that's Doobie. I appreciate you, friend. Okay. Let's all right, so let me read the prompt. And we'll go from there. All right, topic. The CDC director has been fired after a month on the job. She had a wealth of experience, but was let go because she clashed with HHS Secretary RFK Jr. on vaccine policy and refused to fire several other longtime CDC leaders. She is being replaced with an anti-vaxxer who has no experience in the field whatsoever. This all comes as RFK has made several controversial health policy revisions, including tightening eligibility requirements to get the COVID vaccine. Do you have confidence in Trump's health policies? Do you think this is an area of concern for him? Or do you think Trump is mostly leaving this in the hands of RFK? Do you trust RFK? And do you believe that the U.S. is well positioned to respond to a large-scale acute health crisis if one arises? And credit to my friend Corey, who came up with this. At first, I didn't think this was going to be a good. That's why it took me so long to send another topic. I'm like, I was trying to think of something because I didn't think this one was going to work. But then I'm like, no, this is actually a great topic. And so here we are. So anyway, the point is, I appreciate Corey. Yeah. So CDC director gone like literally less than a month. Like yesterday would have been a month if she was on the job. She didn't make it that far. And less than a month, and she was told she was going to fire some CDC leaders. I'm not exactly sure which ones they were, and make some other changes. She just wasn't going to do it. And so, yeah, let go. And it seems like other people might have different opinion, but from my opinion, it seems like she was replaced with a yes man. Again, other people can say differently. So I want to know, what are your feelings here? Like, are you guys confident that, Trump has got this, right? That he has a clear vision for health policy in the United States, right? Or if not, and that's okay if he doesn't, right? Do you think RFK Jr. has a clear policy, right? And you think his record so far has been one that tells you that all the awful things that come before the CDC or HHS in general, that he's got a plan and he is a competent individual to execute that plan. We'll go around the room. I want to step away and like fill my water bottle, as I've been saying I was going to do for a while. You guys know the deal. You don't have to need me to direct you, right? Hopefully. Okay.
We'll find out.
We'll go for our friend Lactoid.
Yeah, I mean, I got a pretty short intro here. There is some stuff we're just not going to be able to say because of Twitch TOS, especially on this topic. So, sorry in advance, I guess.
I don't think that's true.
I think it's absolutely true. But I think RFK is pretty based so far, and I think it's a good first year. Some of the proposals are pretty based. The whole idea, I think, of not feeding kids slop and cutting off welfare recipients from buying soda with the government money, those two things outweigh any possible bad he could be doing with anything else. So that's my opening.
Okay, I'll wait for my prompt from prompt. No, I'll go. Well, I strongly disagree. Where I'm. If you're following everything that he's doing, he canceled about $500 million or 500 million worth of mRNA vaccine research. And to the uninformed, mRNA vaccines, they don't just apply to SARS-CoV-2. They apply to they're in development for many other things, including cancer. If the United States has any interest in actually leading the world in research, especially biomedical research, the mRNA technology has a lot of potential. To just cancel a huge portion of it, I think that will have a very long-term negative consequences. And you're also seeing in terms of you essentially need to one of the earlier talking points is the politicization of science, before Trump. But then I think you are clearly seeing it now in terms of, RFK. There are reports that he has tried to pressure a journal to retract a study because it went against, his narrative that he pushes of aluminum, contributes to, autism rates or, has some sort of negative consequences of it being vaccine, even though there was a study just recently published and he tried to get that retracted. And thankfully the journal pushed back on that. In addition to, just silly things like focusing on whatever, banning food dyes or trying to get rid of food dyes, not a huge concern. Just like beef tallow, again, not a huge concern. And as a whole host of other things, where it's pretty clear that they have an agenda that, and if you don't fall in line, just like with the Bureau on Labor Statistics, situation, if you're not giving the right numbers, they're going to get rid of you. And if you're not going to publish the right science and go on with their narrative, they're probably going to get rid of you. And it's also interesting, at least in my mind, of people like Lactoid. They're all about merit. I don't know what merit RFK has in being in that position. I don't know what merit the current now NIH director has in comparison to Francis Collins. Jay Bhattacharya is essentially like an economist. They went to medical school, but they never actually practiced any sort of medicine. And so it's what merit do they have in leading the NIH? And also, it's also interesting that with the CDC director being, as Prime said in the opening, of basically being fired after a month. How is that a good reflection on Trump's judgment or anyone around him and his judgment of after a month? And I believe they were approved by the Senate, and then just after a month, since they're not falling in line, they're gotten rid of immediately. But people like Lactoid, they will focus in on SNAP and other sort of trivial things. But I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it one way for a while now, and every day I look and I see more soft, bitch ass people. Just every day. At first I thought it was just a participation trophy shit, but then I go online and I hate to say that I'm moved by this, but I am moved by this. I have an image of what a sissy lefty liberal looks like in my head. And then I see the person they're championing is a guy that can't lift over 135 pounds, like in New York City. And I'm like, wow, what a bitch. And this is somebody that's supposed to be the future of the left over here, bro. This is their new champion to come fight the right, one of these new guys. And then I look at their best looking one is, what's his name? Old Lion, fucking Newsom. It's crazy. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, I think maybe we need to try something for a while. We had the head of whatever was the head of the public health was this grotesque looking ogre of a person that looked kind of like me. That'd be like me being in charge of the Department of Health. I'd be sitting here going, oh, hey, yes, I have my doctorates. And then I rail a line of cocaine and tell people that drugs are bad. Sorry, I don't think I trust this person. But then I see RFK out here. He survived the brain worm. He's over here lifting big numbers at his age. Maybe we get rid of this dye. I talk to my friends overseas, and they all talk about how they're eating all the time. They eat like 10 meals a day, and how they're eating like 2,500 calories and not gaining weight. And we're over here, you eat twice, and they're just fat as fuck. It's crazy. And I'm just like, I wonder how this is happening. And you know what? I think there's something in the food, and maybe we should just let RFK try something out for a while. I think maybe less government's good. Maybe that's a good thing in all these things. And maybe he's a yes man. I don't think so. He's got some pretty radical ideas. I don't know if Trump is even on board with all of RFK stuff. So I'm not too worried about the yes man thing. But maybe if you're really stopping what's happening when he's trying to push a new agenda and we're trying to try something new, then you probably have to go. And I'm okay with that removal if that's the case.
Let's go to Iko.
Well, I just heard less government good, but then I heard that in association with RFK, which is strange because the things I'm looking at him doing involve more government. I went to my CVS the other day and I asked him, when are we getting our new shots or what are COVID shots? It's like, well, now you have to qualify to get a COVID shot. You can't just get one because the government is now going to step in and say, that you can't have one unless you qualify as one of these things. So you have to have diabetes or you have to be above a certain age, that sort of thing. But the things that people are talking about that they like about RFK are, again, I agree with Corey that these are relatively less important things in terms of scale, but I don't have a problem with them. Not feeding kids slop? Yeah, remember that debate between Michelle Obama and Sarah Palin when Sarah Palin goes up with the plate of sugar cookies and says, this is what should be feeding the kids? Obviously, Michelle Obama was right about that, right? And I think her vegetable garden should still be at the White House, in fact. But so, yeah, RFK is doing that. That's great. That's a holdover from when he used to be a Democrat. I'm fine with that. I don't care about candies and cookies and things being struck off of the food stamps. I think that's fine. I think that's a fine idea. I do have a problem here in Texas, right here in the Dallas area. We've had a couple of kids die from measles. And in fact, we hadn't even had more than one person die from measles in the whole country since 1991, in the last 35 years. And now we do have multiple people dying, not because of any policy that's been implemented yet, but because of the movement that's been headed by RFK Jr. over time, convincing people not to get those shots because he causes autism, stuff like that. He went to Samoa in 2019 and peddled this same idea, and then suddenly people stopped taking their measles shots there, and they had an outbreak in 2019, and 83 people died of measles after 0 died from year over year for many years because of the reduction in people getting flu shots, because they were trained by RFK and people like him not to trust the medical community. We're starting to see that here in Texas, and we're seeing it in Arizona, and we're seeing increased measles cases all across the country. So no, I don't think firing experts and replacing them with people who not only are not experts themselves, but also fundamentally distrust experts and won't listen to them, I think is a big problem in the medical community. The price of which we may not see for years, but when it does happen, no one's going to take responsibility for it.
Okay. Let's go to our friend Ollie.
Yeah. No, I don't trust either of them. I don't know why we're putting the CDC in the hands of some DEI hire for Secretary of Health or whatever job RFK has that he's not qualified to have. Just being like buddies with the president and doing blue methadone or whatever the fuck that blue shit he drinks all day is. It doesn't qualify you to lead the health of our country. So I trust Corey more to do that. Corey should be leading the CDC and the Secretary of Health. I got you, Corey. RFK has done one thing that I liked, right? He recommended the Alp nicotine patches. Those are the pouches. Those are actually really fucking good. Shout out Tucker Carlson. You know, Qatari funding has done him well, right? Great American product that he has made. But yeah, Lactoid. The two things that he's done that he said that you said he liked didn't even really have to do with like health. Like he didn't have to be the health guy to do it to ban soda from like Bridgecard or EBT or whatever the fuck it is. That's not really like he doesn't have to be the health minister or whatever job he holds in order to do that. You can just be in government and kind of push for that. So I just don't know what he's doing. I don't see what the qualification is. Obviously, if there's someone who has the qualifications and then you fire them because they don't agree with you, maybe they don't agree with you because you're wrong. But rather than doing that, we just fire the people who disagree with us and hire people who agree with us because that's going to make us feel better. You know, I thought we were the party of facts over feelings, but I guess not.
Okay, and Doobie?
I think I'm probably aligned with Aiko on this. So I think the food stuff is good. Everything else seems fucking terrible. And I agree with sociologically that he is like a DEI hire, like realistically. Maybe not D. He's a fucking. What would you even call this? It's just to make it just comes off as
incompetent hire. That's the term.
Incompetent, corruption. He's a friend of Trump, helped him in the campaign, so he's pushing. So he'd give him a spot. Like, I don't know. The entire thing seems like retarded. So yeah, that's where I stand.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And actually, really quick. I think what you said, Ali, the blue thing. I think it's methylene blue.
Yeah.
Which is like a dye that some people drink as a supplement. I actually tried it for a week a few years ago, and it made me feel really like weird. So I wouldn't suggest it, to be honest with you. But some people say it gives them like a lot of benefits. So whatever.
Okay, so Lactoid. And do you essentially also agree with what Doobie said? And I think Ali alluded to, of like RFK is not qualified to be in that position.
He's not qualified.
Or rather, if I remember previously, like you mentioned, you highlighted that. If I remember correctly, that Kamala Harris was like a DEI, hire, so to speak, or rather, you seem to put her in that category. Are you saying that RFK is more qualified to be in that position than Kamala was in her position?
Well, the DEI,
as vice president?
The DEI thing was very specifically because she was selected because of her race and gender. I don't think RFK was selected because of his race.
It could also be qualifications as well.
Well, DEI is, you guys use it as incompetent or unqualified, just being hired for the sake of, skin color or whatever. So I guess turned around, use it DEI hire as in like we're hiring their friend.
It's to emphasize a couple things, right? It does, I think, emphasize, somebody who's selected for the role based on characteristics that are not merit. But more so, it's also, maybe not more so, but it is also used, I think, in tandem to emphasize the kind of hypocrisy of like the people who are decrying discrimination, who then go ahead and actively use it when they so choose, right? Like, you're going to say that, let's say I own a business, that I can't refuse to, or I can't put a sign on the front door that says, only white men need apply. But you can have the president of the United States say that the only person in consideration for the Supreme Court is a black woman, or woman of color, and the only person in consideration for the vice presidency is a woman, preferably one of color. So I think that it belies kind of a hypocrisy on the racial discrimination element, as well as kind of this emphasis of racial diversity over merit. I think that when it comes to high level government positions like the president, or in this case, the HHS secretary, where they are making directives based on policy that the people of a democracy have voted for. As you know, I think merit, yeah, sure. Like, I would still want that person to have some level of expertise in the thing that they're doing. But if their policies are really good, like, that's kind of mainly what I'm looking at, right? That's what, you know, I think is important. So when RFK, for example, is saying, you know, not only are we going to ban soda for food stamp recipients, we're also going to, you know, work on removing potentially harmful dyes from children's food. And we're going to do like the Michelle Obama thing, which I have repeatedly on this stream defended Michelle Obama over this incident. I think Sarah Palin was a moron when she brought out these sugar cookies and said, this is the thing that you should be eating. Absolute embarrassment. She should never have recovered from that politically. But RFK is the right position on this, which is that we should not be feeding our kids slop. Obesity kills far more people than any of these other things do, far more than measles. And I'm also skeptical that RFK has really made any kind of like systemic changes that has made it more difficult to get an MMR vaccine, at least to any kind of appreciable degree. I know his rhetoric on vaccines is like, you know, more antagonistic, I suppose. But
would you agree that
alone,
his takes? Would you agree that his takes on like food is he has the same takes as like your average liberal Facebook mom, right? Like if we shouldn't feed kids slop, you shouldn't, like, you know, maybe you like don't give soda to fucking EBT recipients. Like it's bad for their health. And fat is bad. Like he's not saying anything crazy. So his qualifications in leading something where he can hire or fire someone who is qualified or unqualified based on his liking, like that matters. But like him having like Facebook mom takes that we agree with aren't necessary. Like that's not.
I would like it. I would like.
It's not good.
I would like for it to be like liberal Facebook mom takes, but the problem is I just don't think it is anymore. I think that there has been major shifts on the left, specifically like the kind of centrist Democrat left, which I think is what you're referring to, as of the past like decade or so, especially when it comes to topics of war and trusting the system, right? Which tend to go hand in hand. So, you know, now you've had a lot of Democrats.
No one trusts the food. Like when it comes to war or whatever they see going on in the world, like sure, but no one trusts the food in America.
When it comes to spending tax dollars on soda, I don't get pushback from conservatives, really. I do occasionally, but the real pushback I get is from these left-wing kind of Democrat types that are saying, oh, so they should just like live off slop then? Like they shouldn't be able to enjoy themselves every once in a while?
Steak and lobster.
When you look at the data,
I mean, I don't think pop is like the biggest of deals. One per cost, and two,
it's the number one
in terms of like
it is the number one in terms of food items. It is the number one item that food stamp recipients spend money on.
It's also probably the cheapest item that they spend on,
and it's the thing they spend the most on calories. It's the thing they spend the most money on. Like I know it's cheap,
people
but they drink a fuck ton of it.
People drink a fuck ton of things that aren't water, and they should be drinking water. Yeah, sure. But it is kind of a petty attack to look at like EBT recipients and be like, oh, you shouldn't be drinking pop, then sit here and claim it's for health. It is just to make their lives a little bit more difficult on something that is the lowest cost in the grocery store per anything around it.
It is absolutely about health.
But say what you're saying.
It's not about health.
They just replaced the corn syrup with like sugarcane. Right, which one I say increases the problem. It won't fix the problem. Hold on.
Nothing.
Hold on. There's arguably there's some problems with like the corn syrup bullshit. You can't convince me this is not worse for health.
There are, but it's still
tariffs are making sugar cane.
I'm saying if you put the sugar
is somehow better than corn syrup.
Yeah, the corn syrup. Yeah, I think there's probably like at least a significant increase over overall health you're gonna get from just that change alone. For these people, it's just less.
Well, that's not very America first, right? Because
come on, the processed bullshit is not good. We all know it's bad. The processed shit is always adding stuff. There's always bad things.
They don't process sugarcane?
I mean, it's not the same. You know what I'm talking about. There's a level of processing.
At a molecular level, it essentially like It is the same. Like
It tastes very different though, Corey.
Just different
does taste
ratios.
different, yeah.
Yes, it is. It's high
agree with you.
fructose
Tastes-
corn syrup because it's higher fructose. But at a molecular level, it's like
The American palate
How
has
could-
How
not
can it be
seen-
molecularly the same if it tastes different, Corey? Explain that to me. Explain that to a layperson.
because if you have 55%, okay, so if you want to go down the road of like what is sucrose,
I mean, aren't
okay,
humans
and
and
sucrose
bananas the
is a
same?
mixture of glucose and fructose, okay? That's a 50-50 split. But if you have high fructose corn syrup, now fructose, gram per gram, that is sweeter than either glucose alone or sucrose, okay? So if you have greater than 50% fructose, that's going to increase the sweetness.
So what you're saying is this is not the same, is what he's saying. He's trying to sell us one thing,
but
in reality, it's actually not the same.
No. A molecule of fructose is a molecule of fructose. A molecule of glucose is a molecule of glucose. Okay?
Listen, I mean, a molecule of rubbing alcohol is the same as a molecule of alcohol in my beer, but if I
No,
drink
it's no. Do not drink. Do not drink isopropyl alcohol. Do not drink. No.
I mean, it's the same
Pour
thing,
out,
right?
pour out. You're
absolutely
rubbing
different.
alcohol,
So
boys.
it's different. It
I don't think
obviously
it's the
it's
same
obviously
molecules
different.
at
It
all.
obviously tastes different. I mean, you go to European countries, like when I go to Sweden, the soda there has real
And I
sugar.
agree, they taste different. That's why I like Mexican Coke.
Mexican
Mexican
Coke,
Coke has taken off in the
baby.
U.S. because they put real sugar. But here's the point. If what Gibbs is saying is, well, we just got to switch out the high fructose corn syrup for regular sugar,
it's a start.
and
It's a
then the
start.
forest can have it. Absolutely.
Oh,
not.
wait, no.
No, I'm just saying it's a
Wait,
start.
wait.
It's a
Can the
start.
forest have cookies
Why?
left
No.
and chips, or is it
Why?
so what can they eat?
Well,
So
Well,
what can
hold
they
on,
eat?
I agree with you, though. It
What
should just
can
be
the
rice
poor
and beans.
eat?
That's all they
Is
get.
it just
Nutritional
hold on.
food.
Like
Hold on,
what?
Lactoid, is it just the
No, not even that. They
you
shouldn't even
agreed
get
with-
that.
Hold on,
They should just
Lactoid,
get
you,
just
People
enough
need
to
sugar,
survive.
right?
you
Rice
agreed
beans,
with
that's all they
get.
the
People
Sarah
talking,
with
yeah.
the Sarah Palin thing. Let's see if we go another step. Do you remember the big controversy over large
Animal
cups
advice.
of soda in New York? Do you remember that whole thing? Like New York was going
Yeah,
to
they were
say
going to
that
ban the.
they were going to ban
yeah.
the extra big Slurpee things.
Bloomberg.
16 ounces would be Bloomberg. Republicans were all over that. Can you agree that would have been a good step
No.
for health in New York to do that?
Well,
No,
it would have
been a good step
likely
for
been a good step for health, but
Yeah.
but that's what kind of where the principle of like wanting healthy people kind of conflicts with the principle of you should be able to do what you want with your own property, which I think.
Okay,
is very
so
fundamental.
what do you think? So do you think that RFK is drawing the line there? That all he's doing is anything that government has control over currently he wants to do, but he doesn't want to expand government control?
I
Or you think he?
Well, I think he's limited. I think he's limited on expanding beyond government control by his own party in a way that I think is probably good. But he's targeting the things that, because the government has control over it, he's able to have more. He's able to have more control over it.
Look, what's appealing to me about it, and because Democrats used to be for this stuff too, and I think they largely still are, is that there's been attempts in the past to change consumer behavior so that we eat healthier things, and if we eat healthier things, the logic goes, the stress on the healthcare system will be less.
Yep.
And in that sense, it's an indirect shrinking of the size of government, right? Because now the government doesn't have to pay for all that many diabetics and all that many, heart attacks and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like, even though on its face it looks like an expansion of government power to do that sort of thing, in a lot of ways you're reducing the size of government in the long run by doing that. At least if you let it play out.
Yeah,
I would just give rice, beans, vitamins. That's that's all that should be allowed.
Well, hold on. I mean, I
Or
understand.
just put a tax on the stuff, a sugar tax.
I understand the point, and in fact, this is, even though I do think the calculus overall comes out against it for me, I am most sympathetic, I think, to the motivations behind these kind of efforts, as opposed to other things the government tries to do, right? So when New York is like trying to let's say, tax sugar, or let's just say, even though I'm like, yeah, that's probably not good, I'm not as like voraciously kind of angry at this in the way that I am against towards income tax or something, because just like with income, you're disincentivizing work, which is bad. When it comes to sugar or alcohol or tobacco, you're disincentivizing those kind of vices, which you do want people doing less of this.
I do think this is an opportunity. Like if this, if let's say he didn't have this anti-vaccine kick that he's on right now, which is, I think, the larger overriding issue. But if somebody had come in a Republican administration and said, "Hey, we want Americans to eat healthier now," I think you could build a bridge. Obviously, this administration doesn't want to build a bridge with Democrats on anything, but this would have been an opportunity for somebody to do that in, I suppose, on an Earth 2, where we had a different kind of Republican administration, right? But at the moment, I think it's a smokescreen. And I think the bigger threat, and I think the thing that probably, Corey picked this topic. I suspect vaccines were top of his mind when he was picking this one. Like, what are we going to do? Like, already we have the most annual vaccine deaths starting this year that we've had since 1991. If we start experiencing the same thing that they're experiencing in Samoa after RFK's big speech there, and the big trend of people pulling their kids from vaccinations and stuff like that, like at some point, actually, I guess this is more of a question for Corey. At what point do we hit a point of no return where it becomes very difficult to get back to herd immunity on stuff?
I think that from my understanding, although my virology is a little bit rusty, but that will depend on like from disease, well, viral disease to viral disease. So like measles, mumps, rubella, from what I understand, of like they are highly infectious, and so in order to achieve herd immunity, like it's a much higher threshold than, let's say, influenza, which is not as transmissible, where I think it's like greater than 95% in order to achieve herd immunity when it comes to measles, mumps, rubella, and so it's going to vary, by viral disease. But like, yeah, there's absolutely going to be a tipping point at some point. And what you're essentially seeing it now play out in Texas and also up here in Canada of Alberta. Alberta is essentially the Texas of Canada, or Texas light of Canada. Of like, yeah, there is a huge outbreak of measles also in Alberta. That's pretty much like historical, or like hasn't happened, or rather, I think since 2000 or up until recently, just like the United States, measles was essentially considered eradicated in Canada, and that's essentially
right.
the case. And so like you see the tipping point of like that the measles is like the canary in the coal mine. Since you need such a high threshold to achieve herd immunity, that's going to be the first thing that surfaces.
Okay, so that's my next question. So 2019 to the 2019-2020 school year, I get these stats because I work with the schools a lot. We get updated on these. Herd immunity for measles is considered to be 95%. And 2019-2020 school year, 95.2% was the percentage of kindergartners who had the MMR. So we were barely above herd immunity and had been for decades. Now, this year, or actually I should say last year, the 2024-2025 school year, it was 92.5%. So we're talking about we can only afford 5% of kids not to have this vaccine in order to keep herd immunity. Now we are at 7.5% who don't have it.
Yeah, and hence you're seeing an explosion, and unfortunately, a number of deaths. That's probably just going to unfortunately increase.
But the number of deaths as they increase, like let's say it goes up to 8.5 or 9% or whatever, I assume that the deaths that result from that don't go up arithmetically like that, but they would go up exponentially as each point gets added. Is that right?
I would say generally speaking, yes. But also just keep it in mind that people just think of this binary. Same thing with COVID of like you're either well or you're dying. But there's a whole bunch of other effects, as in death is not the only bad outcome when it comes to measles or even COVID.
Well, okay. I want to examine that. Death is not the only bad outcome, right? Let's examine something. We know when the Native Americans in the United States died in mass, it was because of why? They didn't have the immunities to all the things that the Spanish and the British had. That was the big reason, right? Can we all agree that's the big reason why most Native Americans... Okay, cool. Yeah. So now, let me just propose two scenarios to you, right? One, do you want to be the Native Americans or do you want to be the Spanish? And this is my real scenario right here, right? So the Spanish lived in Europe, and Europe was a dirty, filthy place at the time. Lots of disease. Everybody in the world came from everywhere. It's the center of the world, between the west and the east. All this disease is mingling and it's making some nasty shit, And the people that are surviving, they're hardy. Then they come to the Americas and everybody fucking dies. I for one don't want to be a Native American in that scenario, right? I want to be the Spanish. Now, when we go to space and we start colonizing, do you want to have the Columbus effect and give it to these aliens when we encounter them, or do you want to be getting Columbus because we got vaccines for everything?
That's the war of the worlds.
Hold on, and our immune systems don't do shit. I'm just saying, who do you want to be? Sometimes it's good to call the weak.
That's not how immune systems work.
That's what we're doing down here. We're calling the weak, and we're breeding stronger people. Do you want Texans fighting your wars, not these sissy Californians?
That's the whole point.
6,000 vaccines.
That's the whole point of vaccination, is to actually train your immune system so that when it encounters the virus, like it's already pre-armed or primed to deal with the virus. Like,
but it's not dealing with new mutations all the time.
And the one way to reduce the chances of mutations,
the mutations are a good thing,
is to be vaccinated. Yes.
Yeah, but how is your body going to recognize this alien new threat if we like stop these other things from ever developing? You know, all this constant development, it's like an arms race. The immune system gets stronger, the things are getting stronger, but we're like stopping it at this one stage. This virus is never evolving.
Virus.
Just the opposite. Just the opposite. You're introducing new stages. Like you're giving it new instructions that it otherwise wouldn't have gotten.
You do realize that we saw this play out in terms of like, how do we go from alpha to like delta to omicron? Of like, that was
does herd immunity limit potential mutation? Yes, it does. It absolutely does.
Herd immunity through vaccination.
Right.
Yes.
So okay, through vaccination. So these viruses are not able to evolve. Is that correct? Right? They're not be able to mutate to a new stage that can affect humans.
They evolve at a lower scale.
Right. So lower scale. So what I'm saying is, if we get rid of this, it might actually be a good thing in the long run because some people will die. But hey, guess what? Our bodies are now being exposed to constantly mutated viruses, and the ones that are surviving are going to have longer genetic memories, be able to fight more types of viruses.
No. Well,
we're cutting this off because the viruses that are hold on, you're stopping a whole evolutionary branch of a virus. You're telling me they're not going to
You're cutting it off because what you're saying is what you're saying is that these new instructions that would allow us to fight off more viruses, now we no longer can add those instructions.
When's the last time smallpox evolved? It was around for 40
How do we get rid of it? How do we get what was the method by smallpox?
Good points.
No, he's saying it's a bad. He's saying it's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing long term. Like it's no longer here, right? So we come into a new virus that we would have had because smallpox eventually makes a mutation that would have gave us this receptor, and we were more immune to that than this. Oh, guess what? Now we're fucked because we eliminated that branch.
So Gibbs, it sounds like you're in favor of a gain of function research, right? Because you'd want viruses
dice roll, baby. Let's let it roll.
You'd want viruses to have more and more function, to be more and more
let's weaponize some bio,
more infectious at the very least, right?
We need to get rid
so that humans could be exposed to a worse virus and then be better. Also, like in the same branch, you'd say, hey, we should infect as much people with AIDS as possible because then
that's infected people.
Why would that be an issue?
It's one thing if it naturally does. It's another thing if I'm over here injecting the people.
Let me alter it, right? You'd say we should get rid of our protocols, right, to stop the spread of AIDS. Because if we're stopping the spread of AIDS, then we're limiting its opportunity to spread and then to mutate and then for the human body to be able to battle it, right?
No, I think that you're confusing. So I get where you're coming from, however. I would say, one, I don't want my tax dollars going overseas to fund one aid person. Fuck all that. The rest of it here in America, if we're going to sit here in America, hey, I want you to have the option to defend yourself against the AIDS. If I have, if there's some kind of cure-all med, cool if you buy it. If there's, you want to buy the protection to stop it, that's up to you. But, if it's happening in the wild, hey, let it be. Let it roll.
Wait, so are you essentially saying that it was a bad thing that we eradicated smallpox? I'm
saying it could be. We don't know now. Maybe in a million years we'll know.
Okay. Do you agree with that take, Lactoid?
I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You don't know anything. So, okay.
You don't know. You don't know. You tell me right now. You can 100% guarantee.
How can you make any recommendation? I agree. You can't know anything with absolute certainty.
Okay, hold on. All right, we're the first animal. All right,
let's let kids smoke.
You agree that we're the first animal in history that's been able to make vaccines, right? You're the first animal in history, right?
Sorry, say that again?
We're the first animal in history to make vaccines, correct?
As far as I understand.
All right, and before that, all these animals, successful animals, like dinosaurs, millions and millions of years, right? All these other animals that like today, millions and millions of years, and they never had any like exposure to these that things. So maybe some of them did die off because of disease. They were weaker, right? Or maybe they got exposed, like a Columbus effect. They die off because they're weaker, right? And only the stronger ones keep surviving. Now, we come in and now we stop diseases that were dangerous to humans forever. How do you guarantee me in a million years that since for the first time we've done this, we've altered the environment and altered the normal progression of evolution on here? And how do you guarantee that now, because of that, something doesn't evolve or mutate in time that would have killed a massive portion of humans, but then our genetic history adapts to stop it from killing those people, and we need that further in order to stop from going extinct? How do you argue that that doesn't happen?
I agree with you. I cannot make any guarantees a million years in the future. I don't know anybody that can.
Whoa.
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that can make any decisions by factoring that in.
I don't think I've ever seen such a just straightforward Gibbs W right there.
Okay, so
you're just running. And Corey ran fast from that argument.
I want you then to repeat Gibbs's argument and say you stand by it. I want you to seal approval. Say Steelman Gibbs's argument and say I verify this message from Lactoid. Do it.
So I verify.
No. Yeah, I know.
Well,
I'll do it.
Ollie, go.
No. Don't give him enough.
He's a person of color. And the person of color goes first.
True. Person of color.
Don't let him weasel out. Don't let him weasel out. Okay.
I'm a white man. I need to go second.
Grow a backbone. And do it.
Just bite the bullet. Who cares?
Come on, you're a lawyer, right?
I think we should talk more about the food.
I'm sure there's a reason why you don't use your real name. So
let's talk about the food. Let's talk about the food stamp thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to share.
But go ahead, Ali, and then I'll give my take after Ali's done.
Typical lawyer weasel.
Go ahead, Ali.
I don't know. I'm just jumping in because it was fun. What is to say that like we shouldn't just let these things exist as they are, and the people they affect. Like maybe that is kind of the way of the world. The life cycle. The what is it? Darwin's theory of evolution. The strongest will survive. The weakest will. Listen, all I'm saying is I'm non-vaxxed, and my friends are vaxxed. And when we went to Florida, okay, I did everything but lick people. And then when we came back, and they were all like hype, they had their masks on and everything. They got sick, and I didn't get sick. And maybe there's something to do with that.
Just
Maybe. Wow.
Maybe I'm just a more evolved human. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, you can find like centenarians that smoke like daily. I don't know like what the point is about. But then no one advocates for smoking. Yeah.
Let's let Lactoid in, and I have a super chat afterwards.
Yeah, so Lactoid, verify that message.
Sure.
Steelman,
so
Gibbs,
I'm going to Steelman and Gibbs. What Gibbs is saying is that,
and say that you stand by that message.
I tell you what, I know a guy who went to Vietnam, got shot at with a hail of bullets, right? Survived that experience, not a single bullet hit him, right? And then I know somebody else who's never been shot at all, who died when he was 30. So of course, being shot at. It will give you a long life, right? That's
nearly equivalent to what I'm saying.
It's equivalent to what Ali just said.
Let me just do these super chats really quickly before you jump in.
If you see a gun, your adrenaline goes up. You now perceive threats better, right? You're more better able to avoid certain things because your instincts have enhanced, right? They've evolved immediately. They've heightened. There we go. Thank you. And so, yeah, I mean, if you've seen a gun or if I
agree that logic is equal to the logic that you gave just.
Also, there's something to be said about luck, right? That guy could be very, very, very lucky, and if you are a lucky person, bullets won't hit you, and therefore, you'll have a better life.
Luckiness is in your genes, right?
Yes, I agree. And so probably luck is why you haven't gotten COVID.
So
I mean, and I'm one of God's favorites, right? If the Jews are chosen, I'm the favorite.
Sure, right. I agree. That's equally good enough.
Let me get these super chats out of the way quickly. Then we'll go to Lactoid as he tries to salvage all of this. Okay, so $10 from Alexander Wynn says, laughing my ass off. This is the level of knowledge in the conservative community. Why not just expose everyone to everything, and the survivors can be susceptible to the next mutation anyway? Bring Ebola too. Why not bring Ebola? Good thought, Alexander. Why not have Ebola as well?
We need a virus tier list.
Yeah, virus tier list. Hold on, and then another one.
$10 from Alexander Wynn. We have medicine and science, as well as vaccines to bring immunity without the danger of creating mutations.
True.
The Native Americans didn't. Pretty simple. But yeah, why not? Why not?
Well, I'll tell you why. We're going to meet Gluk Columbus II, and he's going to come in here, and we're going to get his special form of AIDS, and then we're going to be the Native Americans.
Special AIDS.
Oh my God! All right, fine, lactoid.
Lax. Yeah, contest with that, buddy. Yes.
Give that to
This might be a first in panel history. Okay, but Gibbs, I want to engage with something that you brought up earlier. You seem to be in favor of the sugarcane. Is that not government overreach to pressure companies to use sugarcane? Why do you think companies started using high fructose corn syrup? What do you think one of the reasons are? Yeah,
cheap.
Exactly.
Because it's American. It's America first.
Yeah, cheap. Yeah, and there's corn subsidies, and hence high.
There's corn subsidies. That's the whole manipulation of the market, and they had to figure out some way to use all this corn. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of theories behind that. I mean, listen,
so why
I get what
would that
you're
not be government overreach to force companies to use cane sugar as opposed to high fructose corn syrup when it's cheaper to use high fructose corn syrup?
So I am sympathetic to that argument, right? However, I think
you should be on board with that argument.
Hold on. But I think there's also something to be said for like, it's amazing how you can just like go from like just eating like a frozen meal every day or something, and then like you start cooking, right? And even then, like it's debatable how like much healthier it is cooking wise, like compared to the frozen meal, because like all our shit we cook with sprayed with all sorts of shit. It's like GMOs, all sorts of stuff, right? And I'm not even really against that, but I do think there's something to be said when you go buy a Coke or you buy like I don't know your Mama Ray's frozen pizza or frozen little like meal ready to eat, and it's all processed meat. Like just switching for a week, that you're just gonna feel better, and like I don't think it's just a mental thing, right? Like maybe it's a placebo effect, but like it's reported on average, like lots of people report this all the time, right? And I think there's something to be said that like for whatever this artificial manufacturing thing is, yeah, it can be good and you can make it healthy, but like I guess I feel like there's a lot of these companies that are just like cutting corners, and people are starting to notice, or they're putting stuff that's like not been classified as dangerous yet, but like all these other countries recognize it as dangerous, and they're putting it in the food. I'm like, yeah, if we require
those other countries' government use government regulation.
I understand that, but it's also like, is the government regulation be like, okay, just use natural foods like sugarcane? Like, why is that a bad thing to be like, we want you to use a natural food like to eat? Like when we see the number one problem in America is obesity, like I feel like there's got to be some answer. I'm not a total libertarian. I think it's a fair question. Like, like if we're going to regulate something, maybe like start small, like incremental change. Like, okay, let's just try this out and get rid of some of this bullshit that's in the food. I don't think it's a big like leap. Why wouldn't you want them to go provide from natural suppliers instead anyway? Instead of like big.
Corey, don't you guys have a European food standard up in Canada? Isn't your guys shit like different than ours, right?
Yeah, we have a Health Canada as opposed to the FDA and all that stuff.
So you guys, I think you guys are. I think your food is a bit better than ours in terms of like when me and Gibbs say processed foods, right? I obviously understand that like sliced turkey is a processed food. But like what we mean is like all the bullshit foods, like the shit that comes in the box and the slop that's essentially fucking
what Lactoid eats on stream.
Ironically,
more like the food that we all eat, right? Because it's the cheapest, it's the most readily available, it's the most addictive, it's the most like given to us, right? And so like when we a few weeks ago
you go out to eat
3D printed meat, right? It's just that like we see that other countries, it seems that they have fucking healthier food, right? They don't have red dye 40. Their ingredients lists are shorter. You can pronounce most of the ingredients, even in their processed foods, even in their Snickers.
They do have red dye 40. Just that I encourage you.
Well, I mean, some people don't. or they have it. It's a different.
But you can have the same exact diet here in America, eat the exact same diet, go to the same store, buy the same ingredients, and then go to Italy and you'll lose 20 pounds and just be healthier.
Well, you wouldn't have the exact diet.
There's multiple factors.
Well, because even though you're buying the same products, it's like this one's been modified.
Well, you don't have the same diet. It's different foods and different, like it is different region, different food, whatever. So much so.
These studies have been done in terms of like
the equivalent food. Is what I'm saying.
If you control calorie per calorie of like you like, I encourage you. Like, I'll maybe provide the studies later, but these studies have been done like in the laboratory, and actually, this is a good example of how if you don't fall in line, it's like you're just going to be ousted from the administration because like one of the I would say arguably one of the best nutrition researchers, Kevin Hall, they resigned from the position from the NIH because it's like, yes, they were doing these studies on ultra processed foods versus, you know, whatever quote unquote natural foods or unprocessed foods. And it's like, if you actually take people and you control for calories and you feed them ultra processed foods versus the not processed foods, like they behave the same. It really is like you control energy intake. There's nothing inherently bad about ultra processed foods. And in fact, you can actually design a healthy diet around ultra processed foods if you actually want to and put in the effort. Like there's nothing inherently bad about ultra processed foods. I'm not in favor of everybody.
Corey, hold on. You say that, right? But what are the sample sizes for these things? Let's say the sample size is 1,000 people or 100,000 people, right? That's a big. Let's just say 100,000 people. That's a big sample size. Would you agree? You think you can predict a trend?
But just to be transparent, those studies don't have that amount of sample size of 100,000 because like doing diet studies is very difficult.
What kind of size? Like 1,500, 50, 300? Like
no. It would be typically like a few dozen people.
A dozen. Okay, perfect. Even less. But let's just go with my 100,000 for a nice massive round number, right? Like I see polling. We take polling, and I know this isn't the exact same, but polling, I'll see like listed at the bottom for these polls like 1,500 people, whatever. Okay, cool. But let's just say we're taking 100,000 people and we're going to test it. Now, I'm arguing that's a big number and it might show a trend and it might indicate some things. But when we're looking at like over time, over like the last 50 years, as food has become more and more processed in America and we have all these different standards and we're seeing like fast food. People are buying more fast food. People are buying more of this like processed slop. You know, you're going and obesity is just skyrocketing. And if people are having these problems, it goes, okay, well, what's going on here? Maybe these trends don't show up in that sample size, but something's happening and it's time to try something else. Like, you know, like I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying that nothing is happening. But even then, like if you want to figure out what is happening, you do the actual research. And RFK and the overall Trump administration is not actually providing the climate to actually do that research. And in fact, like if you're not doing the research that they want, or actually even reporting the findings that they want, you are just going to, again, you need to toe the line. And so it's like, yeah, if you want the answers and you want to solve the obesity crisis and you want the research to back it up, like it doesn't seem like this is the climate to do it.
The problem is it seems like RFK is just me, right? He's which I said he's not qualified to be in office. I don't think I'm qualified to run the fucking health secretary of health or whatever it is. But you do have to like take into consideration like for the average person, right? All they see is like an uptick in all these dietary issues, right? I feel like a lot more people actually have like I don't know. They have more again. They're like the shit they're eating is not working out for them. Everyone's gut is fucked. I feel like you hear a lot about gut biome, right? And then these are the people, like I said, it's the Facebook moms that are the ones who are talking about natural food, growing your own foods, non-pesticides, staying away from vaccines, all this shit. And we only see the negatives that come from the process. We don't see any negatives or hear of any negatives that come from like the natural versions of the foods. And so then the argument is that like all these people have got like digestional issues that we'd assume it'd be from the foods that they're eating, and the foods they're eating are ultra processed and they're shitty or they're not good, right? Like the American diet isn't a good diet to begin with.
I would agree. So it's like standard American diet.
Okay, so then let's say, I mean, I tend to be more sympathetic to the idea that ultra processed foods actually are kind of bad for us. But Trump has been lobbying, in fact, demanding from the EU that they open up their markets to ultra-processed foods from the United States.
Yeah.
Like they have food regulations there, just as Gibbs was saying, you can go over there, eat the same foods, and you'll live a lot longer because Mediterranean diet. And the difference seems to be that when you're eating the food that's made there, it's healthier. And when they import food from the United States, then they're going to lose those benefits, right? So we have an administration.
Gibbs was missing out, like on holding the lifestyle. Also, is different when you're going on vacation in like Europe.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
You're going to be walking around a lot.
But the
more,
idea
right? You're not
is
going to be driving. So there is a reason why you end up
the
losing
countries
weight.
don't have the.
But the idea is, and Gibbs has talked about this too, like especially being a rancher, that he wants to sell more hormone-treated beef to Europe. When right now they don't want to import hormone-treated beefs. Like it seems to me that there is.
Oh, I don't want. Hold on. That's like not a fair assessment either.
I
do want the standard lower.
Well, hold on. Let me make my statement, and then
I can't do that over there. I don't hormone treat my beef. As far
but I'm talking about what the Trump administration is demanding that they do, not specifically what you ship out. So all I'm saying is that I think there's a growing sort of contradiction between what the Trump administration pursues and what this HHS is pursuing. And at what point will there be enough of a clash? Like, if the EU says, hey, listen, we're not going to import this stuff, your own HHS director says that it's unhealthy and no one should eat it. So, like, at what point, when those two parts of the government clash, who wins?
Well, I'll tell you the problem, Cal, is that it's kind of twofold. So this is why I was very upset when you brought up the hormone thing, right? Sure, Trump is forcing their hand, right? But it's because they played unfair for so long, right? Specifically with beef, right? I only have grass-fed beef, right? That's all I have. We have grass-fed, and we like every once in a while we're still able to call it grass-fed. You have to use alfalfa cubes to move them from one area, but it's like less than 1% of the time you use it like over time, right? So overall, it's like 99.9% grass-fed, right? And you're going over here like, hey, I don't want this person to sell it over there. They won't let us sell it over there because our safety standards are different. Even though my shit still doesn't qualify for that, I'm still not even qualified for organic because of the rigmarole and the hoopla to go through it, right? And it's just not worth it to do it, right? Because with all the contracts I already have. However, when you're saying these things like, oh well, the hormonal, they have like unfair, like. We put these things on there. So yeah, on one hand, I do want them to have to accept more processed foods, but I do think at the same time, it's also
true. But you just said the fact that they don't is why.
But hold on, but it's twofold. This is not the processed food we're talking about. Ali kind of alluded to this. My grass-fed beef is not a processed food in the manner we're talking. Like, I think they should be able to accept that and then be able to have it over there, and they'll be fine. However, as opposed to like when I'm talking about their shit, they got. Oh, if I want to go make a pasta, I don't have to use this grain-enriched flour that's got like, dioxide B57 in there as like a caking agent to make up for not having to use it. That's a totally different thing than what we're talking about here, Cal.
But should we force Europe to take that flour?
I mean, that's different than like changing the restrictions on beef because you've had unfair restrictions for like years.
I just gave that as an example.
Right, but Iko,
forcing them to buy things they don't want to buy.
What he's saying is that like.
In terms of
they're not necessarily in contradiction because you can think that like the EU standards are too like just absurd and rigid, which in many cases they are, right? Like they're for example, like
but on balance, Gibbs says it's making them live longer.
Well, it's unfairly hard
that on balance, I think is doing more work there because you can have two positions that are entirely compatible. You can say that a lot of the restrictions of the EU are really bad.
Okay, but do you think that the tariff demands are putting that nuance in?
No, you can say that a lot of the
I agree.
A lot of the EU regulations are ridiculous, but there's a few in there that potentially make sense that we're not doing, and that RFK is trying to implement those, right? So a big one of those is like reducing the red dye number 40 in children's food, specifically food marketed to children, right? The research on red dye number 40, I understand it's like somewhat inconclusive, but the fact that there is some evidence that it's not good, and the fact that like it's pretty inconclusive is
like the fact that we have to do research on it is like, enough for people to want it.
Potentially concerning, as opposed to what Gibbs is saying, which is like
we should.
When the EU demands a certain size of strawberry, this is ridiculous, and like we shouldn't have to play by these rules. We should be instead trying to we should make the world play by America's rules and make America's rules better. And one of the ways we can do that is by potentially removing some of these additives that are marketed to children that are particularly dangerous, or potentially dangerous even. And so I think that's what you're seeing right now.
Do you think that Trump's tariffs with regards to Europe and the demands that he's making in terms of how they open their markets, do you think that those demands have all of this nuance built in? Or
I don't think you're ever going to get you're not when it comes to like any kind of policy, you're never going to have 100% nuance and like compatibility between two different elements of the administration pushing two different agendas. Yes, there is a general agenda, but
there can be more of an effort to align with the claims that are being made.
Hold on, it's also like one of them is in retaliation. Like, okay, you're going. Our industries have suffered because of y'all's policy. Now you're going to take these, and our industries are going to grow. And then at the same time, RFK's over here going, well, since these industries are growing, let's focus on some of the other stuff here. Like, hey, maybe let's stop getting whatever the corn syrup in there and start getting sugarcane because it's a natural thing in here. Like, that's probably a net good, even if it's like not like, hey, the overall best thing ever. Like, you have to take incremental change. I don't see why that's a bad thing.
Well, that's another thing. The tariffs want more American, high fructose corn syrup in the EU market, even as HSS wants to have less of it here domestically, which means we would be importing more sugar cane from South America. Do you see the tension there between what they're trying to do at the import-export level?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is some of these things are like, yeah, I get what you're arguing with this. It's because American companies already have these things installed. Like, okay, I'm sure Coke or Coca-Cola or whatever has their specific sugar, corn syrup manufacturer, sugarcane person now, wherever. I'm sure they already have their own supply chains. Yeah, they'll probably benefit, and that'll increase American jobs overall. But I don't see why, if you're concerned about overall Americans improving their health, why, okay, we're going to probably start pushing towards like natural sugarcane and slowly wean this off into this other thing, which is a healthier direction. And then maybe over time, we can maybe stop doing all the corn subsidies and go get rid of some of this stuff and start going more towards sugarcane, or maybe trying to find places in America where we can grow sugarcane. Like, there's all sorts of like angles you can push. And that's
Trump got elected in part.
But at the same time, you have to punish these Europeans who've been fucking us for a while on this kind of shit by having these overly strict restrictions, where it's like excluding whole markets because of like, some like, I don't know, patently just real like small, doesn't inconsequential matter at all, like size of strawberries, or like, we're not going to allow beef because you have this one vaccine that's required by the FDA that y'all's doesn't, or we're only going to allow this much shipments in. It's real ticky-tack bullshit, and they've been doing it for years. So now, guess what? Now you got to get the stick. Like, that's just how it works sometimes.
Yeah, but here
like, you're arguing this like consequentially.
Here domestically,
they both can happen at the same time.
Right, but here domestically, like, is Trump going to maybe eliminate the tariffs on sugarcane so that it can compete better with high fructose corn syrup in the United States? Because we don't grow the stuff here.
Right.
Like, how are we going to make that happen?
Okay, cool. Exactly. Why don't we get these companies start doing R&D into how they can make a greenhouse to get that done? Like, you're arguing for the.
Well, we can by emitting more CO2 into the atmosphere. We can eventually create the climate by which we can grow sugarcane. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, that's one argument. Sure. I mean, hey, climate's changing. I mean, Antarctica put on 100 billion tons of ice this year. Well, all sorts of stuff's while it's happening. I heard Bill Gates the other day say the CO2 emissions from a car is like less bad than a cow, right? Like, okay, it's like, okay, if that's true, I'll sleep it overnight with a cow in the garage. You sleep overnight with the car running, and we'll see who's alive in the morning. Like, some of this stuff just sounds like bullshit. Like,
it's not CO2. It's not CO2 that would kill you, and that's not.
Well,
it's
convenient.
Carbon monoxide.
It's very convenient.
That would be CO1. Yes,
removing
an oxygen atom would be very convenient.
To ask Doobie about his opinions on these things too. Doobie, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm curious. All right, going back to vaccines. We can touch on the import-export thing later on. But going back to vaccines, I'm actually kind of curious how this interacts with your ideology. Like, should we allow more people to do what they want, right, in terms of vaccine safety? Should we be concerned that maybe more people are getting vaccines, aren't getting the vaccines, and then causing issues, or should we be looking more in terms of freedom? Because I think you're more restrictive. I think you're more of a government control person. So do you think that like we should be putting more pressure on people to be getting these vaccines? Is like RFK going in the exact wrong direction?
Yeah, I think he is. So I'm like sympathetic or empathetic to. Yeah, I've got like I understand the freedom's my body, yada yada. Right, I got that. But I think the reality is, we live around other people, right? And our health impacts the other people around us. So, I don't want to risk myself or my wife or my child getting some kind of measles, for example, because because right now my son's still too young to get the full regimen of vaccines, right? So, if he's around somebody that has one of these, that has COVID, for example, because if they don't get vaccinated, he could get fucking COVID, which would be very, very bad. So there are plenty of people that are at risk out there, right? It's not just like newborns that are put more at risk because of this decision. So I think I get it. I get wanting to be free and not put this stuff in your body if you don't want to, whatever. But just understanding the reality that we live in a society and we're all responsible for the harms that we do to each other. I think it does make sense to put more pressure on these people to take the vaccines if we find that they're effective and safe and all that.
What about for food policy, right? So we were talking about before, food stamp recipients and them using a certain percentage of that for sugary drinks and maybe other unhealthy objects. Should we be able to exert pressure on them to make quote unquote better choices?
Absolutely. And I'm going to trigger Lacton. I actually am in favor of like a health tax, or a bad health tax to be specific. So if you are unhealthy, understanding that your poor health and your poor decisions are going to, and I mean, typically people who are like fat, right? Obviously, if you have some kind of an issue, no fault of your own, I wouldn't tax that. But if you're overweight, you're a smoker, whatever, I think that if you're choosing, your behavior is going to cost everybody else more money because it drives up the cost of healthcare, then you should pay more in taxes, right? At tax time, there should be some kind of a fee or fine or whatever the fuck.
Sugar tax.
And yeah, sugar tax. I'm okay with that on items like a point of sale, but I mean at the end of the year too. I'm okay with people being weighed and reporting their weight to the government. I'm like, hey, you are morbidly obese. You're going to cost us more money long term, so you need to pay more right now. I'm totally
just
okay
crash
with that.
diet before.
Yeah,
the
there's
end of the
too
year.
many alternative reasons why somebody might gain weight, though. Like I don't think you can do that.
So like I said,
or we
if
just
there's,
don't pay for all these
we
people.
we could have a list of
Trump.
exemptions, right? Like there are obviously justified reasons. We have a list of exemptions. If they don't have any record or any justification for one of those exemptions, yeah, tax them more.
Seems like a sugar tax would be a lot more simple. Like it already takes into account all the variables.
No, because people you can get fat eating healthy food, quote unquote, too, right? So if the issue is that people are obese, and we understand that people can get obese by eating healthy food, quote unquote, then we should tackle that issue specifically. We should encourage people to go out and exercise. And on the other side, if somebody is healthy, right, I'd even be okay with if somebody was very overweight the last time they did their taxes, and so they paid a fine. If the next time they did their taxes, they lost 50 pounds or something, right? So they went on a diet or whatever, lost 50 pounds, 60 pounds, whatever the fuck it is that year, I'd be okay with them getting some kind of a credit or getting that money back that they paid, right? Something to encourage them to keep on that path. I think that we can exert so much more pressure on society, or the government can exert so much more pressure on the society than currently is, to mold it in a way that's beneficial for everybody. I think that because America's built around this, liberty, hate the government, don't trust the government, that kind of thing. I think that people are have a knee-jerk opposition to this. It feels too daddy government, but I feel like this is necessary and beneficial in some places, and I think that's one of the places.
So
yeah, I think what we're finding out is that knee-jerk reaction mysteriously vanishes when it's the Trump administration doing it. So I think, and often it's been a truism in American politics that that if you want real change done, it's always the opposite party of what you think that is actually capable of getting it done, right? So if Trump actually gets behind something that's going to like something like a sugar tax, then it's actually possible that something like that could actually happen. The Democrats could never get that done, right? Just like Republicans could never, do I don't know. Democrats always Republicans have a hard time getting real cuts in spending. but it's always really, anytime you want to do something, it's always the opposite party that you think that can actually get it done. And so, if you want to do something like a sugar tax, or I think a sugar tax makes more sense. But if you want to do anything along the lines of disincentivizing unhealthy behavior with regards to that, I think that only Republicans could do that.
So before we get too far away from it, Doobie, just to make sure we all are on the same page, you're like, we should make a massive government bureaucracy to keep track of everyone's weight in this nation.
That sounds so complicated.
It really isn't, actually. I mean, people have doctors. I think before you got here, you'd need to make healthcare universal, to be clear, which I do support. But I think this could just be one of the things that's reported to the government by your doctor, right? Like the tracking your health. And if your doctor flags that, hey, this person's gone over this limit and they don't qualify for this exemption, yada yada, they really are just eating too much or eating bad things, then that gets reported and then you're fined. Or in the inverse, if you've done a good job.
See something says something.
Well, Doobie, what's next? Are you gonna say, okay, now we have the tech, let's just put a nanobot in there that's gonna track all their diet? Oh, this guy ate too many carbs today. Yeah, but hold on, are you saying he ate too many carbs? 50 cents off his pay today. Like that's the future you're advocating for you. That's crazy.
Hold on, have you ever seen the movie The Island? It's like these clones, and I don't want to spoil it, but basically, very, very interesting movie about clones and all kinds of shit. And at the start of the movie, this guy gets up in his futuristic, which means dull gray and metal room, and he pees into the toilet, I think, and it tells him like, oh yeah, your sodium's too high. You should avoid the bacon this morning when you go to breakfast, right? Like, I think that is actually like fucking peak. Okay, we absolutely need something like that, something that like tracks your health minute by minute to let you know what you need to do to stay on track. And if people won't do it because it's difficult, I understand that. Like I said, I was extremely overweight in high school. I didn't start losing weight until I was like 19, right? So I understand how difficult it can be, but that doesn't change any of the realities of me. If I'd stay that way, I would have been a burden on my family, burden on everybody around me, burden on fucking airplanes, burden on car manufacturers, and all kinds of shit. Anything I wanted to interact with, I would be putting more burden on that thing than the average person. So I just think we need to be realistic. I understand that we are harming people with our behavior sometimes, and we need to adjust. And if we need help adjusting behavior, the government should help us to do it.
So let me get the super chats done. Thank you, Sean, for gifting one Prime Kai membership. Like the only one who does that. And I appreciate you every time you do it. Really kind of you. Thank you, Sean. And then Alexander Wynn, $5 says, to be by that logic, let's tax people with genetic abnormalities that reproduce, right?
I would be okay with banning some people from reproducing if they had like certain genetic abnormalities. I think there's some that are bad enough that it's actually not a good thing to reproduce. They did this in Norway, I think it is, with Down syndrome, if I remember correctly.
Iceland.
Where they found Iceland, yeah, thank you. Where they found, the doctors would do checks before while the woman was pregnant, and they let them know like, hey, your child's going to be born with this issue, and then they just let them make the decision, right? They didn't force it on them. They let them make the decision, and I think almost all of these people decided to abort because they didn't want to raise a child with that condition, which I think is the right thing to do, actually.
Let me ask you, this might seem like an aside, but let me just ask quickly, would you trust Israel with that kind of authority? What if they found out some genetic marker in Arab DNA that they just defined as being harmful to health? Right, yeah, sort of like how sickle cell anemia, right, that can be found in black DNA or whatever, or the propensity for it or something like that, and then used as an excuse to reduce the number of births for that population. Like,
why are we giving them ideas, let's not give them ideas.
I'm just saying this is a dangerous precedent to set, right? If government can look into your DNA and then say whether you can reproduce, like, I'm not sure that I would trust.
Well, I understand, like, the government is saying, hey, you can't reproduce, and we're going to like permanently like chemically castrate you or whatever. Right. I understand that being like a problem. That seems a little overboard, right? But maybe like I actually, Lactoid, we spoke about this before, like paying people not to reproduce.
Yeah, they
Or like give it like, hey,
This is the
you
same
have this
problem,
issue.
though.
You have this
Israel
issue.
would be happy to pay
Well,
Palestinians.
so they
will-
did,
we will
there's,
give
there's
you-
a current program in America that does this.
Oh, cool.
Project
Hold on.
Prevention.
The drug treatment.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, cool.
Just
That's
like-
awesome.
So this is once again like, and maybe this is just the sci-fi brain in me, right? But like, I'm sitting here just following like evolution. You're like,
It sounds
let's just-
dangerous.
Hold on, yeah. Let's just say we're
I don't
gonna
think you're
stop-
following evolution. Gibbs,
Oh,
just to
well,
be
oh,
frank.
bro, I definitely think you're sitting here saying, okay, we're not gonna go revisit the virus debate, but like same thing with these Down syndrome things. Say we find a genetic marker that indicates propensity for Down syndrome, right? Which I think they already have, right? And we eliminate it, it's gone, all right? And then in like, I don't know, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 10,000 years, with some kind of genetic anomaly comes along because we've bred this out that we didn't anticipate because we didn't understand the full chain or whatever we were doing. Yeah, I foresee like that could be a probable outcome, and I just don't think it's going to be a good idea to start playing with the human genome like in this not like the way you're describing, because you're like, oh, I think it's a good idea. We're just going to support all these.
Boy,
Down
but
syndrome
Gibbs,
kids.
We'll
Like,
do that anyway.
How come you're not factoring, from what I understand, okay, if memory serves me correctly, like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, like you're using synthetic peptides. How do you know that 20 years
once
down
again,
the line
that's
those
the
aren't
same
going to?
thing.
Why
It's
why
one
would
thing-
why would you
this is
inject
a big
synthetic
difference.
peptides? You don't know what's going to happen 10 years down the line, 20
but
years
this
down
is,
the
this is the
line.
this is the big
shouldn't you
difference, right?
stop
Between
right
what
away?
I'm advocating for is it's one thing to have like, okay, and I'll actually grant portion of what Doobie said is if they want to just give them the information and make them aware, they're more likely to have this, and then the people choose to do something. That's one thing. But having like the government regulate that out is a totally different. Like if I have something to know there's risks, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to happen to me on an individual basis, that individual should be able to choose what they do. But the idea that the government's going to come in here and go, oh, everybody's got to do it this one way, and we're going to make sure none of this genetic genome goes forward, like that's bad. Like I don't think people should be stopped from having
That's
the
eugenics,
option
right?
to choose. Yeah, I don't like eugenics at all in this kind of regard. That's like a terrifying thought. Like, I mean, why shouldn't I be able to choose between the natural beef and the lab grown if I want to choose? Why should I be forced to be regulated? Oh, well, the lab grown is actually more healthy and there's no natural like CO2 emissions from it or whatever. Like at some point, like I should be able to choose to have this on an
Wait, weren't you
individual
in
level.
favor of essentially banning lab-grown meat like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Unless
because it's bad. It's
What?
Wait, hold on. But now you're saying
I don't understand.
Well,
You
me
should
and
get to
Gibbs were
choose.
saying the
What
slope.
if we need
the
lab-grown
slope
meat?
is bad.
Well, I even gave it an out for that. Like, I think there's easily a scenario where you might need it, like on a a spaceship voyage, right? Where you have like I don't know animals in like some kind of like little test tube. But wait till you get there to like get them across thousands of light years. You probably can't have herds of cattle on a fucking sleeper ship, right? Which is probably the first thing. You're probably gonna need lab-grown meat in that scenario. Okay, that's fine. But in certain scenarios, great. That's cool, but we should restrict it to like.
Not if you had a
certain things like that.
methane-powered spaceship, right?
But hold on,
but
and
you
then
just
cows
got finished
shitting
saying that
and
you
then
should
take
get to
it and use it as
choose.
rocket fuel.
I mean, you can't choose
No, I mean, it should
something
be
that's
banned.
banned.
No, yeah, exactly. But there's differences. Like at an individual level, I should be able to have my like peptide, synthetic peptide, but we shouldn't be having the lab-grown meat situation.
I don't.
But you just said we should choose whether or not to eat lab-grown or natural meat. You just that
Yeah,
was
I
your
shouldn't,
choice.
I shouldn't be required by the government to eat a bio cow. Like that's bullshit.
No,
Yeah,
but but you just said you should be
We've
able to
always
choose
had
which
cows.
one.
Have we always had bio cow?
No, we haven't. If you go
So
back
exactly,
millions
as
of
long
years
as
on a longer
but instead
timeline.
soon we're going to be only having the processed bio cow slop. Next, we're going to have corpse starch. That's what we're going down right here. And like, because y'all sit here and
Yeah,
always
but by
say,
your earlier
always
logic, we should have
you're
both.
envisioning all these better things. Like, oh, that it's always happening.
Don't
We're not.
use
I- I-
Gibbs's
much more-
logic against him.
No, it's not even being used against me. They're just not understanding.
He uses
No,
his
you
own
you said
logic
you
against
should
him,
be able to
okay?
choose
He doesn't need
whether
you
or
to
not
do
you
it.
I'm
have.
not being talking about
Yeah,
being- oh,
It's his logic.
well, okay, hold on. I'm not eliminating the synthetic peptide in this situation, right? Big
I know
Pharma's
because you
already made
take it. You don't want to.
It's already happened. It's already here. I see the bio meat coming, and we should eliminate that.
Okay.
By your logic, we should have both.
No.
So
So you can
I'm
choose.
gonna.
It's
let me-
situational. I already told you this. What are you
let
not
me read
understanding
this
about the word?
The situation is rather
Let me read
advantageous
these
for
super-
Gibbs. That's the
I
situation.
want to respond to a bunch of stuff Doobie said as well. If you don't, super
Look,
fast.
sure. Let me read these super chats and I'll go straight to you, Lactoid. And thank you, Alexander, Willing $10. Let's also tax people based on time spent on a computer. What kind of activities they participate in, how much time they don't spend on cardio. We can go a lot further if you want. That's to DB, and I'm sure Lactoid's going to start addressing.
Can I respond
some
to
of
that
these
really
things.
quickly?
I got a response
Okay,
to
go
that
ahead.
as well. Go ahead, Doobie.
So I don't think we need to get that granular, so that's specific, right? But so I think a good place to start is like something like what Japan does, right? Where they measure waistlines of people working. Like the companies are responsible for keeping track of people's waistlines. They find that they exceeded a certain waistline, they're flagged for like counseling and whatnot. And then if there are too many people in a company or in a community that have waistlines larger than the specified limits, then they get fined because they're not doing enough to help their population stay healthy. So I think that's a good place to start. I don't think that's crazy, right? And then from there you can go a little further, and I think it would be beneficial to go further.
Let's try Alexander Wayne. $5. People should be penalized for every decision they make that isn't optimal for their lives or for society's interests.
I agree, but only decisions about motorcycles. If you choose to ride a motorcycle, buy one.
Good point.
You should be heavily penalized.
Good point.
If anything, locked up, I would say.
Why should we stop there? Right?
I think your insurance, both health and auto, go up, right?
Not my health.
No.
Although,
really,
I will say this, and so I'm going to respond to a couple. This included, actually. This is perfect. So, this is I've said this before on this panel. This is why I think like universal healthcare, really any kind of government-funded healthcare, is sort of like the gateway to hell when it comes to massive regulation, right? Because when you put the government in charge of your health, now there is like a genuine interest that the taxpayers have in because they're directly paying for it, in controlling your life, right? Just from like a pure even like a consent calculus, right? So like if I am like, because we live in a system with such, although we don't have universal healthcare now, we have like pseudo universal healthcare. The government picks up the tab where people don't pay, Medicare, Medicaid, SSDI, all this stuff, and then of course it's not even including the VA, which a lot of that is very expensive as well, and in some cases I think pretty ridiculous, honestly, and a lot of veterans will tell you that as well.
ERs have to treat you whether or not you can pay.
And ERs have to treat you regardless, right? And a lot of that's being picked up. Where now, since I'm paying for it directly, I could see the argument that I want to micromanage your life. I don't want you eating fast food. I don't want you smoking. I don't want you riding motorcycles. In fact, I don't really want you driving. I would prefer you sit in your basement covered in bubble wrap and eat NutriBlocks, and get UV radiation and work in a cubicle all day. That's what I would prefer for you, because that would limit the amount that I'm paying. But of course, this is push against my interest to want to do unhealthy things. And of course, so then the argument is, well, I would like the line to be as close to like not including the unhealthy things that I do, but including as many unhealthy things that I don't do, because then this helps limit my tax burden. I think all this is solved by having a truly privatized healthcare market and then letting insurance companies calculate that risk on themselves. Currently, my insurance company, and a lot of insurance companies do this, they will charge you extra if you smoke. If you report to be a smoker, you get a smoker surcharge.
Well, that's because it's allowed by the ACA.
It's allowed.
There are only two things that are allowed by the ACA: age and smoking status.
It should be allowed for
everything else is a pre-existing condition that they have to cover.
Right. Everything else should be allowed under the concept of the free market.
Right.
Those companies should be able to
but not those two things.
Right.
I have to go. Thank you for having me, by the way, guys. Appreciate it. Also, I like the lo-fi, by the way. Y'all be good.
Catch you later, Gibbs.
See ya.
The private companies should be able to measure your weight. They should be able to look at your background. They should be able to do all that when it comes to evaluating what actual risk you are, just like every kind of insurance does in this country for any other kind of thing. This happens when it comes to vehicle insurances, with home insurance. There's a reason why if you buy in a risky area, your rates are going to be higher than if you buy in a less risky area. All these things should be the case. Private solution, boom, problem solved. When it comes to Doobie's proposal of taxing people for, eating unhealthy, obviously I'm against this. We could just have the insurance companies handle it in terms of what they charge for the activities that people engage in and how overall people's health profiles. I also kind of resent, even if we're not going to get rid of all this government healthcare tomorrow, which I'm under no delusion that we're not going to do that. I resent it a little bit in the sense of like, there's some a lot of us contribute much more than we'll ever take out. And the idea that those of us who are contributing more now have to pay an additional fee because we're not only taking care of the people who can't take care of themselves. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about that, right? I don't like that idea. Like if you're wealthy and you're not going to be taking Medicare and Medicaid anyway, and you're just you can pay for everything out of pocket, and you want to eat chips and you want to be fat. At that point, it's like as little of my business as possible, right? Like if you want to live the way you want to live, you want to smoke and drink,
Yeah, but the trouble is, like, we make these decisions at different times of our lives, right? So, like, we had this debate when the ACA was being designed in 2009, 2010. And there was a big thing about like young people, why should people in their 20s buy insurance? Like they don't need it, and we just let them not have to buy it and they can pay for their own consequences or whatever. Sure. But then when you do that, then you get cancer at say 28, all of a sudden you want to get insurance again, that's the whole problem with pre-existing conditions and how much they can charge you based on prior health status and all that other kind of stuff. You make these risk assessments, but then the consequences of those risk assessments come visit you at a different time in your life, and then all of a sudden, like you complain that you should not be.
Right,
so
this is risk. Like if you buy a shitty house
Sure.
when you're young.
But look, this is how it started. So the law that you talked about, which is that you have to take that insurance that ERs have to take people when they're sick. That's a law called EMTALA. That's a law that was signed by Reagan, and he praised that law. And the reason he did was because he thought this was government doing the minimum necessary. But the problem is, who ends up at the ER in those situations? People who didn't get coverage at an earlier time in their life, right, when it would have been much more cheap and efficient and effective, right, to treat that condition. Instead, they end up in the ER, and now they're paying 20 times, 30 times, 50 times, or whatever society is paying that much because they can't afford to pay it. Because at the point of time in which they're assessing that risk, they're not thinking about where they're going to end up when they end up in the ER. And so now, because of EMTALA, the ACA became necessary because you have to catch people before they get to that point in the ER, because it was becoming impossible to pay all of those added expenses. And there are actually a bunch of other steps along the way between EMTALA and the ACA where the government kept adding stuff like chips, for instance, for kids and other things like that. And of course,
the ACA reduced emergency room expenses in the US?
And all, not expenses for services, but yes, it's reduced. It's reduced ER costs tremendously.
Overall,
I used to know the numbers on this, but I haven't. Yeah, because now we have a more than a 50% reduction in the uninsured rate in the United States. So people who are, for no other reason, when the ER takes somebody in now, they're far more likely to have insurance. And so the hospital itself doesn't have to cover the costs of that treatment. But also fewer people ended up going to ERs as a result of it because they had insurance. Like I know somebody who died because she didn't have insurance. And this is someone who I tried to persuade to get the ACA actually when it was coming, but for ideological reasons she didn't, because she didn't want Obamacare. So, but then later on she got very, very sick. At that point she was addicted to opioids as well, and she didn't go to the ER. She went to my mom's house, and my mom observed how sick she was, and she tried to tell her to go to the hospital, and she didn't go because she didn't have insurance and she didn't want to incur all of that expense. 3 days later, she was dead. So, this is the kind of thing that happens when people aren't insured.
So I'm looking at it right now.
I'm
since
sorry.
the ACA...
sorry, before you do it, we have 2 super chats, and then we'll go straight to you, friend. Okay. Alexander Wynn, $10 says, how far do we take it? How much freedom do we strip away? How much privacy do we decimate? What happens when the next guy wants you to go further? Why did we stop with measuring waste?
He didn't say we'd stop at measuring waste. He said we'd go further.
Yeah, so that was a foot in the door. And then I think we should go further than that for sure.
Okay, I want to examine that. Lactoid. So private insurance just does the work that Doobie wants the government to do. Sounds like insurance companies refuse to cover anyone that isn't super healthy. No, that's not a free market. Thank you so much for the $20 altogether, Alexander.
Well, insurance
that
shouldn't really be a product.
Well, so hold on. So they would charge more for unhealthy people in the same way that if you have for any other kind of insurance, if you have a more risky venture, your premium's going to be higher. If you demand more coverages, your premium's going to be higher. Health insurance is one of these things that, because honestly, just the public opinion is just very one way on this overall. I would say that we just sort of treat health insurance almost like it's not health insurance. Almost like it's not insurance. It's just kind of like a weird, mutant half baby of insurance and
and
government paying for your shit and you paying for your shit through your premiums if you work, or potentially even if you don't work.
The fundamental thing insurance is supposed to do is spread risk, so that one group doesn't have a riskier health
in a voluntary manner, though, because the government can always just spread risk whenever it wants.
Yes, but the government can also provide insurance, in which case it's not just private insurance. There's also Medicare and Medicaid, which are government run. But it still spreads. It still evens out risk. That's what it does.
I understand, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. What specific? Okay, fair enough. I'm talking about private insurance companies right here. Yes, they spread risk in a
private insurance companies
agreed upon contractual manner. And normally, with insurance, what you need to do is factor in risk. You factor in premiums, and you come to you plug it into a formula, and you determine usually with a very small profit margin, or in the case of mutual insurance companies, which are a lot of private insurance companies in America, there is no profit margin because the owners of the company are the policyholders themselves. So, for example, for Blue Cross Blue Shield in a lot of areas, they don't have they're like Blue Cross Blue Shield's like a family of companies. It's not actually one company, but in some of its major segments, they're mutual insurance companies, which means that they don't have shareholders. Like, they don't have a bunch of rich people invested in the company. The owners of the company are just the people who buy the premium, and their premiums are just they buy the ownership share like a credit union, right? And any kind of savings that the company makes,
and it sounds like
passed on. Well, hold on, it's a worker co-op, kind of. It's like a policyholder co-op, sort of.
Well, here's how it's different. Here's how it's different from communism, right? Or whatever. If the government ran things,
that's why it's different.
Then you would spread that risk over everywhere. But because this is voluntary, what it means is that a lot of even mutual insurance companies are incentivized not to take riskier clients. So that means people who are likely to get cancer, or people who are likely to get a heart attack, or people who are likely to get any other kinds of diseases, they will try, and also employers will try not to hire people who are like that. So now you start getting hiring discrimination on the basis of health sort of things. Specifically, if you're trying to avoid sickle cell anemia risk, let's say you have a sickle cell insurance or whatever, then you would be incentivized not to take black clients. And this kind of stuff happens all the time in the private sector industry, which is one of the reasons why a public option, at the very least, is advisable, because then the government is incentivized to cover everybody and to spread the risk as evenly as possible, as opposed to minimizing your risk by excluding the people who need the help the most.
So to respond to that, the consequence of that, just to be clear, right? You have 50%, in this country, 50% of all the healthcare expenses are used up by 5% of the population. So if we literally exclude 5%, we cut our healthcare costs in half.
Yeah, that's a great argument for lowering the age of Medicare.
But that 5%, right? The 5%, normally these are very old people who are in nursing homes are using a tremendous amount of resources.
Well,
just
no,
to
because
survive
they're
a
on
couple
Medicare,
years.
so they're not taking up
No, I'm talking about healthcare costs. I'm talking about total health.
insurance.
No, I'm talking about total healthcare costs, including
No,
Medicare.
but
Medicaid.
we've already done it. We've already done the solution that you're talking about. We created Medicare. So if you're 65 and over, then the Medicare system takes care of you.
Iko, you're missing my
But
point.
that's done.
You're missing my point. I'm not talking
Well, hold on
about.
a second.
I'm not talking about who's
No,
paying
see,
for it.
The thing that you said would happen has already happened, which is that the healthcare costs have gone down dramatically. Healthcare costs for overall private sector companies have dropped dramatically ever since Medicare aged people were taken out of the private market. And if you were to if you were to lower the age from 65 to 55, you would cut it in half again.
Okay, Iko, you must be missing my point. I promise you're not understanding me. I'm not talking about who's paying for it. I'm not talking about if from private insurers or from Medicare. I'm talking about in terms of healthcare costs, like the actual services, right? The cost of the services that are given.
Sure.
Half in this country, half of that is used up by 5% of the population. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some percentage of that 5 that potentially could pay for it all themselves. Okay. I'm guessing it's an extraordinarily low percentage. But some large percentage of that 5%, those costs are being offset to other people, right? And so by not excluding that 5%, we are saying
paid for by FICA.
We are saying we're okay between our increased private healthcare cost and between the increased Medicare and Medicaid costs that we pay. We are saying that we are willing to not exclude that 5% to double our healthcare costs that the average person.
Well, hold on a second. Yeah, but
country.
This is why it does matter who's paying for it, because the people who are on Medicare, their costs are being paid for by FICA. So it's not like increasing like the cost of private healthcare premiums or anything like that. It's coming from FICA. Now you can say that
paying for it when you're
FICA rates have to be higher now in order to cover for that. Well, that's probably true, but that's your past self. Ensuring that your future self will get covered for all kinds of stuff.
Well,
that's the deal that we knew that we would be making when we passed it to begin with.
Yes, the idea is like, and everybody thinks this, like, well, of course we should have these because in the event that I might have to use it someday, right? And we're
not in the event. I mean, we're all going to eventually look. I mean,
no, we're not all going to eventually use these services. We're not all eventually going to be in that 5% that uses up half the healthcare costs. We're not. There is a group of people that will, but it's not going to be all of us.
Okay,
There's a lot
because
of us who aren't going to be in that group.
But because we don't know who's going to get cancer and when and all this other stuff, that's why insurance exists. If you want to avoid that and reduce healthcare costs, not just by 50%, but by like 90 or 95%, you would just do the Logan's Run thing. We all get killed when we're 30.
No.
And
we don't do this. We don't do this. We don't say, well, yes, the risk is higher for some people and lower for some people, but you don't, because that risk is higher than 1% for you, you should agree to pay the same rate that other people are paying. No.
Well, that is what we do. That's exactly.
I understand that's what we do, but no other insurance works this way. Where you're basically asking somebody who rides a motorcycle to pay the exact same kind of personal injury insurance rates that somebody who drives like a I don't know, like really.
This is where we can build a bridge, because you talked about how I think there were only 2, right? One of them was smoking, and I thought it was age, but maybe it's something else. There's a second behavioral thing, but it's behavioral things specifically. So if you want to add to the list of behavioral things that can increase your premium, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, most of the shit's behavioral. Cancer, obesity.
Cancer is not just a behavioral thing. Like there are people who are you can be genetically predisposed to get cancer, genetically predisposed to get heart attacks, all that kind of stuff, and you shouldn't be punished for that, for the randomness of that. But if you want to say that, look, lung cancer, we know lung cancer rates, they increase premiums if you're a smoker or not, but we all know that doesn't work. We all know that's random because everybody lies. If you really want to control for that, you would fund part of our insurance with a tax on tobacco.
Or,
and a tax
what are your thoughts on this?
Things that increase our risk.
Well, let me hear your thoughts on this. What if we just excluded smoking-related lung cancer from any kind of Medicare coverage and Medicaid coverage?
Okay, number one, you can never prove. In fact, this is Republicans proved this in the 1980s, right? When they swore up and down that there was no link between tobacco and cancer.
Absolutely.
And this is, yeah, they did absolutely prove it. But for years, Republicans were on the bandwagon of saying that you can't prove it. And certainly to this very day, you can't prove that any one person, right? They do the same trick with climate change, right? You can never say that any one storm was the result of climate change, right?
Cool.
But we can only talk about in the aggregate that we get more storms because of it. But here in the same situation, yeah, we know that there's that link, but some people get lung cancer even if they don't smoke, and you don't know who got it because of smoking and who got it for other reasons in an individual case. And so you can't really fix that individually, you can only fix it societally. And the only approach that I can think of that makes sense to fix it societally is to tax tobacco if you think tobacco is the cause. And because we can prove it in the aggregate, we just can't prove it individually, and therefore the solution comes in the aggregate.
If we can prove it in the aggregate,
super chat. Lactoid. If my wife was pregnant and found out our child was going to have a heart defect, should my insurance company be able to cut us out if we don't get an abortion? Thank you, Alexander Wynn. $10.
So, okay, first of all, I'll answer that question in just 1 second. Aiko, we're talking about the aggregate, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the private health insurers, like deciding who on aggregate, like which individuals make up certain risk profiles that they can choose to insure or not insure. And this is why these 5% that use up half of the healthcare costs in this country, that cost everybody else a tremendous amount of money that we all have to pay for, these people are predictable. We can predict who's going to be using up on the aggregate. We're going to be able to predict these 5% based on their lifestyle choices, based on their, in some rare cases, genetic defects. Most of the time.
Yeah, but now you're talking about.
Hold on. No. The vast majority of the time, we can predict these people because of their lifestyle choices and their age, right? We can predict who is going to be using up tremendous amounts of resources. To answer Alexander's question, if you have a pre-existing contract in which the insurance company has agreed to take the risk of insuring you, or in this case your child, and it turns out that risk is materialized, then I do think that they are responsible. If you're asking me, let's say you have a kid with a heart defect and now then you want to go to an insurance company and you want to get the same rate as somebody who doesn't have a heart defect, no, I don't think any health insurance company would or should do that, just from like a practical point. They should probably charge a higher premium for somebody with pre-existing conditions. This is just, I know it scares people, but if you're unhealthy, you should probably be paying more for your healthcare, as opposed to the current system, which in a lot of times you don't.
So that's another example of approaching it at the individual level instead of the aggregate level, right?
I value individual rights. What am I going to tell you?
I understand that that's where the line is. Yeah, I understand that's ideological.
This is my problem with the whole thing, right? Obvious, like looking at it through a private market perspective, this child didn't choose to come to this world with that issue, but we're saying that, hey, we'll cover you, right? But we're going to pay an elevated price. There's going to be a cohort of parents of those kids, right, who aren't going to be able to pay. They simply will be priced out of the market. For those individuals, well, good luck, right? If anything catastrophic happens, well, then you'll be more fucked in terms of the costs that you'll have to bear. So no, I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of a collective societal response to these things, because this is not like getting a car insurance, right? You don't have to have a car. You don't have to use that mode of transportation. You need health to you need healthcare to live, right? We all, almost all of us, unless you're the most genetically superior, right? The perfect genes, right? Unless you're Sydney Sweeney, right? You have to go to the doctor at some point in time, and deal with the various issues that come up in life.
Some people go more often.
We shouldn't be lock people out of that. One more super chat. Alexander Wynn, health insurance isn't insurance. Insurance doesn't just spread risk; it spreads it because most people don't ever use it. Everyone is guaranteed to use their health insurance. Many people will use more than they pay. More or less what I was saying previously. Thank you for the $20, Alexander Wynn. It's awfully kind of you. But yeah, like we should, as a, we say health insurance. I guess maybe this is sort of what you were saying previously, Lactoid. Like we say health insurance as if it's some sort of other type of insurance, right? I think we should be treating it differently because it is different, right? Because we need it to live, because we have a level of coercion behind buying that product. And rather than leaving it to a private market, who can live and who can die, right? Which will fall along class lines and will fall along racial lines, right? Rather than that, as a society, we have a collective obligation to help us out, right? Because people fall up and down, move up and down that privilege spectrum,
Brian,
too, right?
Too.
Maybe Lactoid will also move down that privilege spectrum in his life. I hope he doesn't, but maybe he also will move down. And in that case, I want my friend Lactoid to be able to get the care that he needs.
Prime, let's say instead of 5% of the U.S. population using up 50% of the healthcare costs, it was 10 individuals who were using up 50% of the U.S. healthcare expenses. Should we cover them then?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
we should.
Half?
Well, this is something.
Trillions for 10 guys. All right. Sorry.
This is something that we talk about with regards to the frameworks for academic debate. One of the philosophers that gets used most often in Lincoln Douglas debate is John Rawls. He came up with something called the veil of ignorance. The veil of ignorance says that let's say you're designing a society. You haven't been born yet, but you're going to design the society in which you're going to be born. But you don't know if you're going to be rich or poor, gay or straight. You don't know what race you're going to be. None of that. Know what country you're going to be in. None of that.
You could be one of the 10 people.
You don't know if you're going to be one of those 10 people, and you're designing the society that you're going to be born in. And then what you do is you design the society first, and then you're born into it, and then you have to live out what the consequences are for that society. So there's no difference in principle between these 10 people that you're talking about and if it's 10% or 20% of people that we're talking about. One of the examples that comes up the most is slavery, because the alternative is utilitarianism, and in utilitarianism you can say, well, we do whatever helps the most people. And so the answer, the response on the utilitarianism argument is often, okay, 20% of people suffered under slavery, the other 80% benefited. Under utilitarian calculus, you could make the argument that slavery was better because it benefited those 80, so fuck the other 20%. I think there was a very famous sci-fi article where it was reduced to just one person. There was one child that you could make suffer infinitely for its entire life. And in response, all of society would sort of live in a utopia. Do you do that? Do you make that trade?
Do you like?
And if you're going into, if you're doing a Rawlsian veil of ignorance, no, you don't. You try to create a society in which everyone benefits. There are material limitations in terms of what will actually happen. Like we're not going to accomplish this utopia that we're trying to get to, right? But yeah, you design your society so that you can't exclude people. There's not a veil of ignorance for private insurance companies because they can always filter out people who have the wrong genes or whatever. But government can impose the veil of ignorance on itself and say, we're going to insure people not knowing anything about them, except potentially for some behavioral things like smoking. Potentially, you can justify that.
Why? Hold on. Whoa. You don't know if you're going to be born with, the kind of mentality and the beliefs that lead you to smoke. You don't know if you're going to be that person. Why should you have to pay more?
No, but because after you're born, after the veil of ignorance is lifted,
Doobie's got to head out. Bye, Doobie.
Yeah, I definitely head out.
Take care, Doobie.
Yeah, I'm out of here. You guys.
See ya.
Good night.
Take care, Ollie.
Well, I'm going to bounce too, but I think Alexander is another super chat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So Alexander Wynn, thank you, $10. Says Lactoid, if that's the case, shouldn't they just charge me the cost that it will cost them? Why bother spreading the risk? They know that child will cost multiple millions in the first decade alone. Thank you for the $10.
So, whether or not, like, what level of risk is acceptable is a decision made by the different party. So there is a difference between an insurance company saying, we'll accept this threshold of risk for this level of premium. There's a difference between that and saying, well, because insurance companies accept this threshold of risk, they should, of course, accept any threshold of risk. No, like, you can either pay the upfront cost, which is what they charge for the particular service, or there is this other company that provides some way of making that more consistent, right? Which in this case is, can be like a health savings account or, a health insurance company, in which they will accept premium from a large enough group of people in order to provide that level of risk mitigation and consistency to the people who pay in. And obviously they have to set certain risk cutoffs because they want to have the premium low enough to attract people, and also they want to be able to pay out a high enough risk that people would actually see the insurance as worthwhile, right? Even if it's super cheap, I'm not gonna buy insurance on like a $5 deck of cards, because I might lose the deck of cards one day, but at that point I don't really care, right? I lost a deck of cards, right? When we're talking about a very high risk, right? We're talking about high risks when we're talking about your health, right? Or cars or houses, the stuff that we normally insure. There's people who make their entire job, these appraisers and the other word for it, it's escaping me right now.
Actuarials
that make it their entire career to calculate exactly, what is the acceptable risk provided by this person, and what do we charge for premiums. The reason why in health this pisses some people off is because in that 5% of people that use up half of the healthcare costs, there is probably close to, but some smaller percentage of within that 5% that uses so much that they're so expensive that the premiums necessary to actually pay for them without increasing everybody else's costs dramatically, in America's case double, would just the public consumers wouldn't pay for it. They wouldn't want to pay for that. They would prefer to go to a competitor that would charge a lower premium to cover risks that obviously wouldn't apply to the vast majority of people, because they're not part of that 5% that's using up all the healthcare. To answer that 10-person question, by the way, I mean, I applaud you for answering as quickly as you did. I think that's wild. That if we're in a country, we'd be willing to, for 10 people, for however many trillions extra, every year, that we're going to be paying to keep them alive. When those trillions, like, I don't think that people who say that, in my opinion, are accurately valuing the lost opportunity that comes with depriving people of those resources, right? Like, no, so I work to live, and living isn't just surviving.
So I do want to amend my statement there, but very quickly. One, Beef Supreme says $5. ZZ Top might be the smartest person / amphibian on the planet.
On the panel.
We do.
On the panel.
But I thought by ZZ Top, I thought he meant like Ico, because of the beard. Right? I think it might be confusing Doobie with Ico, maybe because we don't have the name.
I heard amphibian, so I assumed it was Doobie.
He said amphibian. I mean, that sounds like
he said smartest person, but ZZ Top. Like,
well, we don't know if iCow is amphibious or not.
Doesn't
No, I understand. ZZ Top makes me think me, but amphibian makes me think Doobie. So
he has a crown on his head.
Oh, crown.
You don't have to put Beef Supreme. You don't have to put it in a super chat. I'll look for it in the thing, in the regular chat. But like, I'm curious, who did you mean? Did you mean the beard guy right next to me, or did you mean the frog that disappeared? So let me know. I'm gonna look for that. Alexander Wynn says this isn't a risk.
Well, maybe he means of the entire panel, there are people and an amphibian, and that among those groups, ZZ Top that's probably what he meant.
We'll figure it out.
I don't know. sounds confusing. But
he says this isn't a risk; it's a guarantee. I guess in terms of the risk, in terms of the baby.
To answer that briefly, when I'm talking about risk, like risk here, it's a guarantee that you're going to use some level of healthcare expenses at some point in your life. The risk is whether or not this is marginal, like this is some kind of tiny, like insignificant amount to minimal amount to you're one of these, 5% that's sucking up thousands of dollars a month, right? Potentially exceeding the amount more money than you've ever made in your entire life within the course of like a year or two.
Okay, maybe I didn't make myself clear enough on this answer. But when I say of the 10, you don't exclude any of them. Like you can exclude them on an aggregate basis, whereas you say no matter who it is, like even if it's Donald Trump, if the cost of covering him like exceeds $1 billion, whatever it would be, then we can't cover that. Like there's some limit, right, to the amount of coverage that you could give. The thing is, you couldn't differentiate from person to person when you do that.
Of course you can.
Right, which means you should only do that on the aggregate level. You make one rule and it applies to everybody, but that rule would apply just as much to the most privileged person on the planet as it would to the bottom person.
Okay, hold on. Let me address this. So the 10 people, they use up half the healthcare. 9 of them are serial murderers and rapists who have committed felonies their whole life. One of them has discovered the cure for cancer and is about to discover the cure for AIDS next year if he stays alive.
That doesn't matter. Nope. Can't factor any of that in. Yep.
I'm keeping. I might keep that one dude alive, but those 9, they're good luck. If I try to find some private.
My guess is none of them will, right? Because your example was it cost trillions. Yeah, none of them will.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not.
ZZ Toppy met the guy on the left. So me and you, Aiko.
Thank you.
Alexander Wynn says. Also, with AI and increased information, they will be able to know with near 100% accuracy who will lose the money and gain the money. I think it's interesting when they have a better idea of what the risk pool is, like who gets, and I think also matters like what the because you're saying within this that the AI is 100% accurate. The AI might not be 100% accurate. I think the algorithms that will be used here will have massive impact into who gets covered and may not be in a fair manner. So I guess I would modify that a little bit. But
if AI were 100% accurate, that would, at that point, the advantages of capitalism over government kind of go away. Because at that point, you can be just as efficient at the governmental level as you can at the private sector level.
I wanted to respond to our friend
the economy bot.
I wanted to say something to Live Tweet. All right, so the 10 people thing, right? Yeah. Again, and we had this argument previously. I think these shows the limit of usefulness of these hypotheticals to extreme.
Yeah.
Because we won't ever be in that situation. We won't be in a situation we have 10 people costing us trillions. Simply impossible. Right. And so, yes, I get you're testing my axioms or whatever the fuck. Right. But it doesn't matter. So I don't really have to integrate that within my practical solutions. I can understand that a significant portion of our population will experience these health issues. And we should. It is worth it as a society, even from a more selfish level, to help these individuals, right? Now, and there's multiple things wrong with this, because also, like, it isn't simply the problem that there are a few people who are taking up a lot of money. It's the fact that any of us can end up in a situation where we have some sort of catastrophic health industry, and then we incur catastrophic costs, which takes away from our overall levels ability to interact with the economy, and then have disastrous effects, like not just for us, but also for our children, for our parents, for everyone. It cascades through society. So it makes sense that we take on this burden, right? Even from a selfish level.
No, all these effects, all the knock-on effects, this is a fraction of the cost if we're talking the 10-person example.
Well, this is what I mean by, remember when I talked to you, remember the coin flip thing where we were talking about what the odds of things are and what they mean? This is the kind of scenario where I think the people who said that, 10,000 coin flips and they all land on head, like you'd still say that it's 50-50 odds. because you're treating extremely unlikely things the same way that you're treating extremely likely things.
I'm not, and I'll explain what I'm trying to do here.
I'm just saying these extreme hypotheticals are ways of looking at very unlikely events.
No, they're not. No, Prime was right. There are ways of testing what somebody's principles are and how they're approaching a problem. So when I asked Prime, and they came out, right? I asked Prime, what if it was 10 people? And his immediate knee-jerk reaction was yes. What this tells me, right, is that he probably does have this, like, I think, insane level of, like, equity-focused politics to the point where, like, he's willing to sacrifice, like, the well-being of all of us just to, like, keep 10 people alive, right? He's willing to sacrifice a large group for, you know, lifting up, like, a small group. Now, assuming that he takes back his 10-person answer, because maybe.
Well, I think he just did.
Yeah, he said maybe he did. But assuming he takes it back, now all this means is that, you know, there is some line between the 10. Sorry, there's some line between the 10 and the 10% in which Prime would say, "All right, cut them off." I don't know where the line is, but there is a line somewhere. My line just happens to be actually probably past 10%. All right, I'm willing to accept that, you know, a higher percentage of people getting cut off. But,
I mean, that's a real world example.
But I think 10%. I think 10. Or sorry, because it's 5. I keep getting messed up. It's 5% uses up half of healthcare expenses, right? So you know, I'm being willing to cut off the 5%. I'd be willing to cut off 10% as well if it was 10% to 50%. But Prime's answer is not 5%. It's not 10%. It's not 5%. But it's above 10 somewhere. So I don't know where it is.
If there's a compromise, okay. So like, let's say that, and I don't like this to be very clear, but let's say, and I don't know the statistics, but I'll trust you. Like this ballpark, get 5% use 50% of the resources. Yeah, sure. But like using that number, right? If we have some sort of Medicare for all system, but at a point when a person crosses into that 5% level, right, where it's clear that that's where this will end up, that we cut them off, okay, right? We cut that off, so we basically lower our cost by 50%. Yep. When we see that these people have like cash off the healthcare costs, that's too much for society to bear. Would you then accept a Medicare for all a system that has so many benefits for all the rest of us, right? But still, we don't have to deal with, you know, all that excess for just a small population, especially the old and dying.
I mean, it'd be, when you say accept it, like I'm always going to push for the more private market option. But if you're saying lactoid, like, would that make it more palatable? Yes, it would. Like, I would much rather prefer, like, if you gave me the option of a universal healthcare system that actually covers everybody, or a universal healthcare system that covers everybody except for the 5% that have, like, absurd healthcare costs. I'm obviously taking the latter option. And you might say, lactoid, what if you fall in that 5%? I'm going to say, that's a risk I'm willing to take. Because, like, I'm also, like, my risk threshold is, like, above that. Because I would rather, because the vast likelihood is that, like, I'm going to live a much, much better life if we don't cover that 5%. And the alternative is, even if I happen to be within that 5%, where I'm absorbing that much healthcare costs, in my estimation, I'd probably rather be dead anyway. So I'd be okay with just picking up the 5%.
This is why I can offer.
No one wants to be 100 except for the 99-year-old.
Fair enough. I think that's actually a really interesting point. But yeah, this is why I can offer you that compromise, because I mean, again, I don't like it, to be very clear. But I actually don't have that instinct that you were saying that I have, that like I'd sacrifice so many of the population. I just had to give you an immediate answer, and I knew what the consequences of the question you were saying. So I'm like, all right, yes.
You can take back answers. That's fine. I was just curious.
There's a more realistic. There's a current example that we don't have to go hypothetical on, and that is Ozempic. Ozempic costs like $1,000. I remember when it first came out. I was heavier back then, and it was just about 3 years ago, and my doctor suggested it for me, and it was $10,000 a month back then because it had just come out. And so I remember thinking, wow, this is really expensive. Maybe it'll come down over the years, and it has. It's about $1,000 a month now. But I remember thinking, wow, if they covered this for everybody, it would probably break the system. Like, there's just no way they could bring that down to a reasonable cost for the average person at that time. So we had to wait for 3 years or so for the price to come down, and even now it's like out of reach for most people. But that's one of those examples where if we did bring the cost of that drug down, because a lot of people die because of diabetes, which it prevents, and or being overweight, which it stops. It's almost a miracle drug in that regard. Most doctors still, even now, 3 years later, think that it would save a lot of lives if it was widely available. But nobody knows if the system could do something like that fast in terms of making it available. And so one of those choices have to be made. Like, are we going to put those kind of resources in there for that? So my point is different from Prime's. My point is we make this decision for the entire risk group, and by which I say the whole plant or the whole country is a risk group in the United States, and we either do it for everybody or we just don't do it. We have to wait, and I think those are equally painful choices. But yeah, I think you have to, because there's a limit to the resources that we have. You have to put a cutoff point somewhere.
So let's head out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've kept you guys long enough. But this was great. Thank you, Beef Supreme, and thank you, Alexander Nguyen, for sponsoring the stream. Once again, with your kindness. Seriously, thank you, Alexander Nguyen. Shout out to you. Hopefully, you're still listening. But I appreciate you all. And I appreciate you, your perspectives on this. I don't think Lactoid, especially, I don't think you're being completely unreasonable, right? And your allocation of resources and your priorities. I just happen to think we have a huge obligation, but I appreciate you making the defense and all that, and I love the conversation. Shout out to Aiko, shout out to Corey, shout out to Juby and Ali and Gibbs, who was here previously. I'm going to raid some tiny channel with a woman streaming. That's all I need, of course. And
you're not using the Veil of Ignorance.
I'm not using the Veil of Ignorance. It's true. But thanks all, and we'll be back, and it'll be great. And I'm just waiting for this to go through.
But Lactoid is still a coward for not steel manning Gibbs his argument and putting a seal of approval.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was going to, but
exactly.
I'll catch you guys later.
Okay.
Now I know why I don't use your real name.
All right, we're gonna raid on out. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Ranger and Rogue. Ranger and Rogue. We'll send you all over. Anyway, have a good night, homies. And I'll catch you guys later.